Welcome to the Blackout Show, presented by The Guillen Grid, a show about the Chicago White Sox baseball, the good, the bad, the ugly. We'll debate what's working and what's not on the south side of Chicago. It's old school versus new school baseball. And most importantly, we're keeping all the receipts.
Hey, Justin, bro, is Dylan Cease going to be the next Chris Sale for us, man?
What do you mean? Like, is he going to be a 300 strikeout pitcher?
Well, I mean, he's a freaking Cy Young candidate that might be taking us into a retooling, and we might have to trade him again, man.
So let me give you a fucking list of the players that is worth my ace, Dylan Cease. Let's just say we send him to St. Louis. I want Nolan Arenado, Paul Goldschmidt, Tyler O'Neill, and Nolan Gorman back. That's just to start the conversation. I don't think there's any player in the major leagues that I would rather have on the roster than Dylan Cease. Now, let me remind you people, I am a homer. Gonzo, what type of packages do you want to see when it comes to moving Dylan Cease if we go down that road?
Well, quite frankly, I ain't ready to go down that route because there's no...
Yes, sir. But
yeah, just like my boy Jonathan's saying right now, there is no package I'm even touching with Dylan Cease.
Pause. It's too early.
We're too early for that.
3.5 minutes in the show. 3.5 minutes.
All right. Well, let's be honest, man. All right. Last time we just mentioned Chris Sale, sent him out the door. He goes and wins a World Series. And we got back Michael Kopech, Yoan Moncada,
yes,
and Luis BSB. BSB's not even here anymore. Kopech,
he shoved today.
He shoved today, right. Last year he burned out at 90 innings, but he's looking better, this year and this start than he did and any start previously this season.
Yes.
I'm hoping that he continues with this because we at least need him to doing what he's doing, eating up innings like he did today. But then you have Yoan Moncada, who, my gosh, it's a roller coaster, man. I mean, the guy was the last 2 years, you were like, what happened to him? It's not 2019 anymore. And he goes to the Winter, the Winter Classic. He goes to the World Baseball Classic, was on fire.
I could call it the Winter Classic.
Should call it the Winter Classic. And then he starts the regular season on fire. Probably the only reason why we stayed competitive in that series in Houston and at home versus the Giants. But then he has his back spasms and he's out. And now we're looking at this situation with maybe a potential retooling. Granted, the White Sox have just won back-to-back on walk-offs. So, hey, you better not let these boys get hot, all right? Because I was nearly in depression over the weekend thinking about retooling. But we're going to get back to this whole retool situation because I don't even want to think anymore about it until later.
You opened up the show with trading me and your favorite player. Like, Gonzo, me and you, we're the same type of fan. We hold unconditional optimism in regards to our Sox. You open our podcast with, is it time to trade Dylan? Is Dylan Cease going to be like Chris Sale? Like, you're the reason my anxiety flares up.
Yeah.
You know that?
Yeah. No, I know that. And I think it also is well known that we got 2 starts of him potentially coming up here this week. So hopefully our boy gets on top of it and continues to shove, and we don't even have to think about trading him. And that leads us to Grifol's grounds.
Ooh. Damn, Gonzo, you snuck up on me there.
Sneaky.
We're good. Wait, before we get into Grifol's grounds, I just want to let everybody know we're going to prepare every night to kick your ass. And this is Grifol's grounds.
You know, I don't have a problem making decisions. I don't have a problem making a call on a pitcher. I don't have a problem making a call on whatever our team needs at this particular moment.
All right, everybody. This is Grifol's grounds. Clearly, we're going to break down everything Pedro this from this past week, and we're going to start it off from tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, it was a 1-0 game. You know, they take Kopech out.
Oh, boy.
Eloy hits a 2-run bomb, and we have a 2-1 lead going into the 8th. Next thing you know, Alex Colome, who was one of 11 guys from the roster changes that they made, he brings him up in a setup role situation into the 8th, straight from Charlotte.
The first fucking at bat, Gonzo. The first guy he sees, Nick Gordon, takes him fucking deep in right center field. I'm talking about deep. Now, Eloy in the previous frame hit a 2-run shot. It was a little cheapy. It was probably the first 2 rows in left center field. The nuke that Gordon hit off Colome, that was a bomb, Gonzo.
Yeah, that was a bomb. And that was a tied ball game. And going into that inning, I forgot to even mention, but they didn't even talk really about it either during the game. But Hansier Alberto, another one of those 11 guys that was brought up, was substituted for Jake Berger at third base. And I'll remind you, yes, Juan, why is he our setup man in this situation?
Why?
You didn't even use Lopez or Graveman yet. But
I think Lopez has one, like, he has an arm issue right now.
Yeah. So Lopez is not available, but you still have Graveman. I guess you're gonna save him for the 9th, but you still decide to bring in Colome in that situation.
Ugh.
I mean, at least he's like Santos or Middleton at that point, but I don't know, man. That was just. Anyways, back to Hanser. Hanser Alberto comes in the situation to take over for Jake Berger at third base defensively, which earlier in the season in Pittsburgh, this is the same guy that led to 2 injuries of our White Sox. The exact reason why Timmy was wound up on a disabled list from that situation that he caused at third base. And then he almost nearly got Sebi Zavala injured on that throw to the plate that put Cruz into that situation on that collision with Sebi. I should say 3 people get injured because Cruz has that fractured ankle or whatever.
Yeah.
That ended his season. But then again, that's his dumbass for that slide that he pulled. But regardless, you have 2 injured guys that he caused defensive with his defensive liability at third base, and nearly cost us 2 games also earlier in the year. Justin, why does this make any sense?
Well, it doesn't make any fucking sense. And I'm going to go to Baseball Savant. Look at fucking Jake Berger's fielding metrics this year. Now, optically, Jake Berger is not the most polished third baseman, but he's getting outs right now. Why would you sacrifice his offensive ceiling to get the same or less defensive production from Hanser Alberto? It doesn't make any fucking sense to me, Gonzo. You made a sideways move. Hanser Alberto ain't locking the game down defensively like Jake Berger could basically bust this bitch open like a piñata. Alberto ain't doing that. So it was an unnecessary move with the theory of putting yourself in position to be better defensively. You know what helps your defense? Insurance runs.
And why would you take Burger's bat out of lineup when you need
Anyway,
insurance runs?
you got all these losers on White Sox Twitter asking why is your best you're already your best hitter batting eighth. Now you're getting your best hitter taken out of the lineup for Hanser Alberto.
In a tied game. Going late into the ball game.
You've been doing some really good things well, Pedro Grifol, for 7 innings straight. Then you put in Colome, and you assume to fix it by pulling Jake Burger.
What? And Jonathan, to be honest with you, like, we get it. You know, we can blame a lot of things on the players, but we're talking strictly
the truth.
We're talking strictly on Pedro at the moment. We'll get to the ball club here shortly, but yeah, you don't do that in a situation like that because next thing you know, it's bottom of the ninth, 2 outs, and you got Alberto at the plate.
Now, I'm gonna go to the East Coast. The New York Yankees find themselves batting Aaron Hicks with the game on the line every night. That is not best practice. The White Sox are on their way to Yankeeville with this Alberto late and inning shit. It's sick. Terrible.
Absolutely terrible, dude. That's just, it's frustrating because then also later on into that inning, first off, to get to be in bases loaded, you had Robert that just got on base, runners at the corners with Billy at third, Robert at first, 1 out. This guy, right, on that whole at bat, didn't even make it to second base. Infield was playing in. They're giving you second base. So
they're giving you a stolen base.
You should already be at second base. And there's that short pop-up into just barely past the infield going into center field to get that second out. Luckily, there was a walk on that next at-bat to load the bases. But still, and then, yeah, Alberto, ends that 9th inning. And you go into extras. And at that point, we're just praying somehow the Sox pull this off, right? Somehow.
Yeah.
Jimmy Lambert in extras, not even Graveman. So he'd even use, in the same situation. And any given, usually that Saber's coming out in extras with the California wrote the runner on second.
Yeah.
But he's holding Graveman. You can go, maybe he's holding him from tomorrow because you're going to have a battle with Cease on the mound. So, but regardless, you got to win now. I'm just surprised that, we see Graveman out there and he brings out Jimmy Lambert. But hey, listen, you got to give Jimmy Lambert credit here. Guy went 1, 2, 3 in that inning. Although Buxton almost smashed one on him, and that almost gave me a heart attack on the couch right back here. Yeah. But wow, how they got out of that, unbelievable. In that situation, you're like, all right, we got to win this game, right? I mean, gosh, and Timmy, going 0 for 4 today, but hey, it's all right. Timmy's making his way slowly back.
He's exempt tonight.
He's exempt tonight. And then you got Andrew Benintendi getting a lot of hate lately on that $15 million contract. But
we're talking to you, Jason Spencer.
Hey, Jason, Dre, welcome to the chat. But Benintendi walks it off down the left field line. Back-to-back nights with walk-offs. So even though Grifol really was testing us today on decisions during the game, and we listened, that bats during the game early on were terrible versus Ryan, not even patient at bats. It was pathetic. 1-0 game. So yes, we can blame a lot of players on their at bats early in the game, but hey, they took momentum from yesterday and they continued to battle through that game.
Yeah.
And they won it in extras. So ultimately with today's game, can't, put so much blame on anyone because at the end of the day, we got back-to-back victories. That, my friends, is a winning streak. Justin, we finally got a winning streak. It's May 2nd, but we're finally on a 2-game back-to-back winning streak. Isaac Ian, our legend of this network, he's taking clothes off.
Yeah.
Hopefully We'll see if there's any more articles of clothing, on him tomorrow.
Man, hold on now.
Yeah, that's getting a little too hot. But we're gonna go back. We're gonna go back into this past weekend with Tampa Bay.
Oh
And yes,
my fucking God, bro.
yeah, me and Justin were there last Thursday's game. That was a shit show.
Yeah.
But let's take it back because
it was a good time with you and Ray. I'm not gonna lie.
yeah, it was a great time. But we have to go back into this past weekend because first off, Saturday. Hey, Justin, Ozzie Guillen Jr. He was right. The first player that was held accountable was Luis Robert Jr. Jr. called it a month ago. He said this kid's going to be the first accountability act that we're going to see. And he was right. He was absolutely right. And it was, oh yeah, that's right. He had a bobbler on the infield and did not run it off down the first baseline, was thrown out. If he did hustle, he might have been able to beat it, to be honest with you, because
maybe
the guy took his time on his throw, and the throw was a bit off. But
if Luis Robert was running normal, Gonzo, that's a base hit 100% of the time.
100%. And Grifol takes him out of the game, and the announcers are trying to figure out what happened to Robert because they were trying to say it was a tight hammy since he had a incident the day before. And then after the game and the presser, and this is where you got to wonder, right? Pedro's trying to cover his players behind closed, in front of the media, and just probably going at them behind closed doors.
Yeah.
But in the situation when you're trying to kick ass, Justin, we're going to go out there and kick ass. We're going to prepare every day.
We're going to prepare every night
to kick ass. And the post game conference, you're just going to allow it to be going with the injury path,
His legs were sore from practice.
Come on.
The night before.
Come on, man. We got to get out there. We got to put him on blast.
Yeah.
Because like Junior said, we haven't held anyone accountable.
Man, let me tell you.
Not only that, but we haven't held him accountable since he's gotten up to the big leagues.
Thank you. It started from the beginning. There was no accountability from Jump Street. Mind you, I was raised off of the Cal Ripken days, the John Olerud days, the motherfuckers that don't call off. No vacation days in the major leagues. Luis Robert is hot dogging it while he's in the lineup.
Yeah.
Like, your coach is basically lying to the media and the fans just to protect you, and you show him up right after. The very next time you have a chance to step on a baseball field, you hot dog. That's a slap in the face. And then the most disgusting part of it all, Gonzo, was this man sat up here and act like he don't know who the hell Charlie Montoyo is. Are you kidding me, Luis Robert? Are you really this serious right now? There's no way. Maybe if Charlie Montoya spent most of his time on fucking TikTok, you would understand who he is. Or if you look to your left or your right on the bench, because if you keep playing, you're going to sit there a little bit longer than you would want to. It was an unserious center fielder in 88's jersey, Gonzo, Saturday, and I'm glad. I'm glad Pedro sat him down. But I don't even know if that's going to... Does Luis Robert know where he went wrong? Like,
no.
To start the game off, you're swinging at the first pitch cutter that's 6 inches below your knees at 90 miles per hour. So we could basically say that's a breaking ball. Why is that getting your first pass to start the game? It wasn't even a strike. That's the first one. Do you think he went back to understood that part of the game? No. You think he was in the fucking video room? No.
Man. And then we go
it sucks, Gonzo, because we like Pantera.
Yeah.
We like him. He's a very good player. But at the end of the day, when you're gonna sit up here and tell me you don't know who the second most important coach on your staff is, what?
Yeah.
Come on, man.
And then you go to Friday's game, the game after we were there, and that we finally. This is kudos. All right, we got to give kudos to Pedro, right? Remind you, Thursday's game, when me and Justin were there, they get blown out 12-3. And you know what happens that very next day?
Yeah.
Vaughn blasts one, right? He gets the boys going. Very next pitch to that next batter, ball's high and tight. The players are still celebrating. And if anyone in the chat watching this, you can check out John Boy's video because he finally did a breakdown of it. It was good. But players are still celebrating. And then they realize, oh shit, our dude just got plunked. Plunked. And then right away, home plate umpire calls time. Walks out there. Starts giving everyone warnings. Right? And then he turns around and Pedro's already shouting, I blew. Come on now. Give us a chance. Give us a chance. And he starts yelling. That's the first time we ever saw any sort of motion.
I mean, if you watch the video, you could clearly hear like Pedro Grifol just irately in the umpire's face. I don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck. Like he said about 8 times in a row. Usually, if I see a human being doing that, that means you guessed it, they don't give a fuck. I think Pedro Grifol was trying to get thrown out of the game. He was trying to set a standard to the umpires, like I'll be this accountability animal, even not just towards my players, but to you too, because we all got a job to do and we all got to be professional. It was prime storytelling, Jason. You're absolutely right. Gonzo painted a beautiful picture. It was a beautiful sight to see Pedro come up out the dugout like that. It reminds me of TLR a little bit when he was going to save old Trusty back in the day. But I mean, it's just one ejection. I'm not gonna hold too much weight onto it, to be honest with you. It was only Luis Robert getting thrown at. It wasn't nobody important, so could be worse. Like if he was throwing at Moncada like that, I would have rushed the field. And Vision, you brought up a great point. If Pedro Grifol was Tim Anderson, he would have got fucking suspended in a heartbeat. Yeah. Matter of fact, I don't think anybody's calling Pedro Grifol Jackie. I think if you look at him, like you do a compare and contrast, Pedro Grifol is like the opposite of Jackie Robinson. Yeah. I'm gonna call Gonzo and tell him he's mute on the show. Hold on 1 second.
Yeah, 1 second. Pause really quick on Pedro because I totally forgot. We totally forgot this. We had 11-man roster change, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oscar Colas.
Oh,
sent down to AAA, right? And you'd imagine Pedro is probably fighting for Oscar to make the roster, right? And we all know rookies are, their first time in the league. It's going to go one way or the other. They're going to start off hot, or they're going to have that first drought, and they're going to have to make their adjustments, right?
Yeah.
Would you think that Pedro Grifol is fighting to keep Oscar on the roster instead of Hazley?
Not anymore.
Because if it was me, I'm fighting. I'd rather see Oscar make. You have the best coaching staff that we've seen. Granted, the players they've been struggling, right? But as far as on the baseball sentiment part of the game, you have the best coaching staff that we've probably seen in years, right? So I'd want to see Oscar Colas learning under this staff than down in Charlotte. Granted, he can get his confidence built up, right, down there in Charlotte in the boombox. But when he gets brought up again, back from Charlotte, and has to face these MLB pitchers, they're gonna go right at him again. They're gonna go right at him with his weaknesses. He's gonna go back to struggle.
It's not an Oscar Colas issue. It's a White Sox lineup issue. Look at my boy Tristan Casas in Boston. He's hitting 138. But they could hide him in the lineup because everybody else is an OPS monster for the Red Sox. With this lineup and the sense of urgency, you can't afford for Oscar Colas to, swing you out of innings. Like it's a smaller margin for error for the White Sox. The White Sox can't afford to give him 400 play at bats, especially if he's basically the worst player on the team.
But we still have Hazley here now.
Yeah, well, I mean,
So I think if you're going to be rotating Sheets and Eloy out there, and regardless, you're going to have one of the, him or the other on the bench, I'd rather have Colas out to fight through this. Because you're just going to bring him up later in the season, and you're expecting him to have success just because he goes down to Charlotte and gets. Let me ask you this:
if Oscar Colas DHs for the most part, let's just say hypothetically speaking, he was the White Sox DH going forward, would you say that's a waste?
Say that again.
So if let's just say Oscar Colas don't play right field, he's still in the lineup the same amount of time, but he's just the DH. Wouldn't you say that's a waste?
No, because you're getting at bats at the major league level.
But Sheets is still in outfield.
Yeah, but in this situation, you want to give Sheets more at bats because of the start he had. So this is
his
chance.
So who's going to be the odd man out? Colas is not You're not gonna.
Hazley's the odd man out, and you keep Oscar as backup until he gets hot again.
Until how long do you got to wait until he gets hot again?
It's undecided.
Yeah,
but in this situation, I'm not worried about waiting on him because I have Sheets and Eloy getting the reps in this situation. So really, and this is going to be a really bigger question because you have to, and we're going to get to this in a bit here about the retooling situation, but Colas is already playing out of position, Justin. He's not a natural outfielder. He's a natural first baseman.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to have to make a decision here coming up, and I'll bring this up again. You're going to need to make a decision who's going to be at first base. Is that going to be Vaughn or Colas?
It got to be Vaughn.
Yeah. So what are you going to do with Colas? Is he going to be your out of position everyday right fielder, or is this a situation you're going to trade Eloy for value, and Colas is going to be your designated hitter and your fourth outfielder for depth?
You trade Oscar Colas to China, you bring Trevor Bauer, and you win a fucking World Series. Gonzo, I don't know why you people aren't making it as simple as it possibly could be.
Mm-hmm.
But me personally, I just feel like you're not getting any reward for Oscar Colas. You're not getting rewarded with his speed, his defense, or his bat right now. It's just nothing.
True. And we have a special guest joining us tonight.
Ooh.
We are going to roll into Blackout Live. And this is perfect timing because we were actually leading into our show segment topic as Kenneth was joining us.
KD.
And for those of you that don't know, this is Kenneth Davis from the Under Center podcast of NBC Sports Bears. Kenneth, welcome to the Blackout Show, my friend. We're glad to have you. And I know we'll get to the Bears here in a little bit, but you had a really busy last week covering the draft. And you haven't had much time to really watch the White Sox. So we're going to have to get ourselves caught up. And what were your original thoughts about listening to us? And really more so, have you seen anything of Colas lately or got to see him since the season started?
This is my thoughts. I know the beginning of the year, I believe he hit like a walk-off home run. I'm gonna say this. I want to ask Joe. First of all, wait, I'm not Jay. Am I getting your name correct, Jay? I don't want to mispronounce it now. I see it's
Yes,
A
I
instead
am
of
Jay.
I'm sorry, Jay. I apologize.
No, it's okay.
Chris, what's up, Chris and Jay? This is Jay. You said something, and I was like, "Whoa, what value does Eloy truly have right now?" And it's not a you thing; it's a they done messed it up thing, where it's like you paid all these. Look, and I'm not knocking the whole league does this, especially teams that are viewed as not having large pockets, or even regular teams now. You pay these guys early because you want to get some of those arbitration years and all of that. Cool, right? I've been a person after he first started getting hurt was like, okay, number one of the funky bunch that has to go is Eloy. Because it's like, yo, he's going to keep getting hurt and do it now. So I'm talking 2 seasons ago, at least being like, look, I know he's fun and all that. You have to get off, and you have to get off some of these guys. And this is another thing that I was thinking years ago. All of these cats wasn't going to make it as far as like, everyone thought this was supposed to be the Cubs, and I'm a White Sox guy, so don't take it like I'm saying it in a negative sense, but seriously, that for a period of time that all of these players was going to hit. Yoan Moncada has done jack since the pandemic year. I mean, has done since back then. He had the 1 year, and it's been nothing, and it hurts the most because he's part of the face of what this rebuild was. One of the first assets you got that was supposed to be something in that Chris Sale trade. Dude, the Sox. Listen, my heart is to y'all for still being in it, and like because baseball,
it's a mental health issue,
dude. Listen, for all sports, my favorite sports are baseball, basketball, and football. You know, it depends on where I'm at. Depends on what my team is doing. But there are certain times where my favorite sport is clearly baseball, right? And baseball hasn't been my favorite sport in maybe 7 years. I mean, because even with the Sox making the playoffs, I was in. I watched. I was there. But baseball will pummel your heart so bad, especially when your team blows leads and it's day after day. It hurts to watch baseball. It's I don't do it. So last year, I'm gonna tell y'all this. Before the season, I looked at the rotation. I said, this isn't enough. It's not enough. I said, I'm not locking in. Right? I was like, I'm not going down this road if it's not being reciprocated, the love between me and this organization. This year, I remember one of my co-hosts, our Bears insider, Josh Schrock, was making fun of me because I was like, yo, I'm locking in, man. I'm locking in. Man, a week later, that whole losing streak started. He's like, you still locking in? I'm like, nah, I'm not doing it. I'm not going down this road with this team when it feels like they don't love me back. And now look at these assets that we once had that was so rich. The only guy out of the main guys who hasn't really, and I love him to this death, even though he does stupid stuff like cutting in front of Eloy still, which is why are you still cutting in front of Eloy? All right, like, first of all, Eloy gets hurt too much for you to do it. And the last thing we need, and of course, I'm talking about Lewis Robert, is for you to get hurt. All right. But the only one, because some fool out there may still think, and I love Lewis Robert, but some fool may still think you can get something out of him. But out of those guys, Moncada, Eloy, and Robert, he's the only one that someone would probably give you a little bit of something to get back.
He got to be careful because that value is eroding. Got benched yesterday.
You're right. You took for foolishness.
On base percentage is sub 300. I mean, when people go out and make trades for youth, they look at your contract and they look at what you bring to the table. Luis Robert is the ideal trade candidate if I'm looking in to start over fresh. The problem with Luis is his performance lately is eroding his value right now. Like, you have 5 tools, Gonzo, but he's not making enough contact to get on base to use his speed. He's not making enough contact to hit the ball over somebody's head for the OPS and the slugging. So what is he bringing? We talked about it to open the show, Katie. We talked about it. He had an open base hit Saturday afternoon, and he cha-cha sliding down the damn line and got thrown out by a pitcher.
No, I did not say it. Just in the chat. I believe, let me say this. I believe I did not say hose. All right. I did not say hose. That's funny though. Kenny from the hood. Come on now.
Hey, Ken, you
Yeah,
can
but-
say what you want. Even
No, I don't mind. I mean, I wouldn't. It would be how I would use hoes. I wouldn't use it towards the female, women or anything like that. But no, I don't have a problem with the word hoes. I just want to make sure to say I don't believe I said hoes.
Oh
at
my
that point,
God, we
or
gotta
whatever.
get Jason Spencer up out the chat. He causing havoc right now, Katie. I got him. Don't worry about it. We gonna pack him up.
Said, did he say one of his hoes? One of my hoes. Dog, do you know? Oh
Now-
my God.
You get to talking about Moncada. Now the chat know he get the body count.
Our favorite guy from the hood is now entering with us.
The hood.
And he just got done umpiring and he's joining us. That's
This man
Ozzy
jumped
Jr.
in like this Hollywood Squares. What type
By
of
the way, the hood. I haven't lived in the hood in a long time.
What's going on, Ozzy?
How's it going, sir? How you doing? Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. It's going, man.
We was just talking about your favorite center fielder, Luis Robert, and how he's still a Hall of Fame player, right?
Number one, how is he my favorite center fielder?
You said you liked him over Mike Cameron, Lance Johnson.
No. I never said that. No.
Well, Junior, we did say how you were right that Grifol finally, that first player he held accountable was Luis Robert Jr.
I won the bet. Did I win the bet?
Yeah.
I won it from way back then. I said it. It was Robert, and I said it for multiple reasons. I think that he's a player that, because of the situation of when Rick Renteria had him and the team, it was only a 60-game season. It was COVID. You know, no one was really being like themselves in the sense of like how you handled the clubhouse and whatnot. And then Tony came in, and Tony's obviously, I don't think Tony ever had a chance to really kind of be himself. And when I mean be himself, the historical Tony La Russa of being a boss, I think he was just trying to be a great stepdaddy. You know, the White Sox got married again, and you know the kids are bad, but you don't want to be mean, and you don't want to
bad kids that don't listen. TA said that.
But you don't want to piss anybody off. You're the stepdad that's just like, you know, being nice. So I knew that Pantera had never been reprimanded. Pantera had never gone through that. Moncada had, Eloy had. They had gone through that with Ricky, because Rick Renteria would bench you. It's been known. You guys can Google it. He benched pretty much every guy that's played for him under there, like got benched or sat, or he came down on. And the only one that was missing from that group was really Pantera. Colos was a new guy, and I didn't see Vaughn being that guy. And I was like, Pantera's the guy that I think if I had to put money on it, that Grifol's gonna, you know, that Grifol's gonna get on. And not only that, I think that Pedro, when you look at Pedro's character of who he is as a former player and a coach, very different than Pantera. Pantera's just been gifted since he was a little kid. Like, he's just a phenomenal athlete. Things come to him very easily. And I think when guys like Grifol, who literally had to grind every single inch of their professional career, they tend to, you know, be a little bit harder on guys that stuff comes easier to. And I think he just had enough with Pantera. And to be honest, Pantera got off very easily. After he got in trouble, they kind of like protected him at the end there, because Pantera should be in AAA right now.
Yeah.
Now, chat, for Blackout Live here with Kenneth, our topic of the segment is, what is your core going forward? We were just talking about it.
What's a core? What do you mean by the core? Like, you mean the guys are going to stay here for the future?
Yes. If you decide you're going to either retool or rebuild, who are you going to keep?
By the way, is this based on money?
Yes. Anything. Talent, money. Who are you keeping?
Talent-wise, you can have it both ways, because talent-wise, I think a lot of these guys are way overpaid. I think talent-wise, I think one of the biggest mistakes the White Sox made, and what they've always made actually, has been overvaluing talent, thinking that they have all the best players. We're seeing it right now with a kid, which I've never seen him play, so I can't talk about his skill set. But every time you hear the word Montgomery, I heard somebody say he can be better than Tim Anderson. I was like, do you hear yourself saying Tim Anderson was not great defensively, but his numbers, when they tell you that you can play in the big leagues and they'll switch your position, he's a very good baseball player. So throwing out the word he is the next Tim Anderson, that's tread lightly at this point. Like, doing it for multiple years. So we tend to do that in Chicago, of just throwing out there. It goes back to Gordon Beckham when Ozzie Guillen, as a manager, everybody hated on him when Gordon said, I want to be the next Derek Jeter, and Ozzy as a joke said, tell Gordon Beckham to be Ozzy Guillen. And people thought that Ozzy was just being ironic, and they didn't realize that Ozzy played 13 years every day at shortstop, hitting 270, 260, but he was there for 13 years. They didn't have to worry about every year they drafted, they didn't have to worry about someone at shortstop. And it's like, yeah, it's great. We all want to be Derek Jeter, but don't shoot so high. And everyone in Chicago media and everybody went nuts on him. I said the other day when they were talking about Madrigal, when they signed him, I said, be Ray Durham. And they went nuts. I said, have you guys realized who Ray Durham was? Like,
right.
When I said it when Tim Anderson 4 years ago, and they're like, oh, what do you mean? I said, if Tim Anderson is Ray Durham, or in the vicinity of even, he might be better than Ray Durham at this point, he's going to have a very, very solid career. So I think the overvaluing of players is a huge, one of the biggest factors of why this has not worked. They've overvalued young talent very, very easily.
Well, it's the talent thing, but you got to understand, with them overvaluing talent, that means they automatically undervalue consistency. And when you look in this White Sox uniform, Tim Anderson right now is the most consistent player I have.
He's the most talented player on the team. He's the most talented player on the team. He's the most
everything.
He's the biggest mouth on the team. He's the realest person on the team. He is a guy that when he takes the field, I know that unless Tim Anderson has something torn, okay, when he's gotten injured, it's not his back hurts, it's a spasm, he's got a migraine.
It's a broken hand.
It's a broken hand. It's a torn, it's a legit injury that requires surgery, time off. There's nothing in the mystery when it comes to him. Here's the other part, though. When you're talking about consistency, and the Sox have a big issue with this, when they are into someone, Michael Kopech, who pitched a great game today, they will go to the end with this person because it was their top guy. And when other guys, if you're not the top guy, they'll cut you out real quick. We saw it with Reese. So when you're a top guy that they draft you very high and, that they marketed you.
Or invest some financial resources. Like
their leash is a lot longer than other players. And we're seeing it right now with Kopech, the crochet one right now. They've given him the fifth starter spot with a guy who hasn't pitched more than 2 years in the big leagues in the bullpen. And to be honest, he hasn't been lights out that you could say, oh, yeah, give him the starting job in the fifth. So again, I think that when you're talking about the core, it's like, okay, who do I know is going to be here because they can afford them? But moving forward, I think the big decision, and the White Sox are one of the three teams in Major League Baseball that has not signed a player for over $100 million. And I'm going to be honest, man, I understand why TA's pissed off, because I'd be pissed off if I was TA too. I looked at third, I see Moncada, he got paid more than me. Okay? I looked across when Abreu was here, he got paid more than me. I turned to center field, that guy got paid more than me. I look now to left field. Benintendi got paid more than me. Everybody is getting paid more than Tim Anderson. So at one point, you got to say, okay, I get it.
That's nasty work when you think about it.
I'm just saying, though, at one point, he's got to be looking around and saying, okay, I play more games. Okay, I'm definitely more marketable than any of these guys all put together in one. Okay, I produce every time I've played at a position in my hitting spot that probably isn't my best position at leadoff, because if they hit me sixth, I might drive in 120 runs. So Tim Anderson, to my opinion, I think is what the White Sox is going to look like in the future, because if somebody deserves a $100 million tag as a $100 million player for the Chicago White Sox, is Tim Anderson. And if you don't think today, May 2nd, in your plans, and Jerry and Kenny and Rick Hahn's like magic board, if they don't have that money saved for Tim Anderson, then what's Tim Anderson doing here? Because he's going to get that $100 million in free agency.
From somebody,
and probably more.
Easily.
The Dodgers, the Braves. I watch Braves baseball a lot. Tim Anderson would fit perfectly in that lineup. That lineup just gets that much scarier. So I think for me moving forward, I think in a rebuild, in a retool, and a restructure, I think Tim Anderson has a lot of value, because if they move away from him, I think it's more painful than moving away from Abreu because of Abreu's age and where he was at. So I think Tim Anderson, if they let Tim go, that restructure looks a lot different. So for me, I think that it starts with Tim Anderson. Like, if you want to retool and restructure and not open a huge window, you have to sign TA.
I wanna ask Kenny this. Kenny, I see the Jackie Robinson painting behind you.
Mm-hmm.
That's what Tim Anderson represents for me in a Chicago White Sox uniform. Somebody who's relatable, one of the guys. When Gonzo asks a question about a core, do you think socially Tim Anderson is worth moving forward with as far as like bringing the new crop up to have them follow his lead? Would you like that situation?
I would like it as a Sox fan, but I don't know if I would like it for Tim Anderson. You know, like I like Tim Anderson, and you have players like it was hard seeing Jose Abreu play for a team that didn't do a lot of winning during his tenure here in the White Sox uniform. You know, like you just come over here and the team basically sucks, right? And then they didn't get close, but they actually become a playoff team. But it's all hocus pocus. It's not real. I want to say this about the whole core thing too. My issue with what would I do moving forward, and I was thinking about this yesterday. I can't really wrap my head around what I would do because who would be the person rebuilding or retooling this team?
Yeah,
like it starts there because clearly it's not getting done properly. So I mean, I would like if I'll say this: if you were going to do a retooling, I think Tim Anderson is the clubhouse leader, and also marketing wise, he's a guy that you can market easily for the next decade here in Chicago. Even when his bat starts to slip, people are still going to love him for what he did in the past.
Absolutely.
You look at somebody like Dylan Cease. Look, if you really gonna make a move, you know who you got to trade. You know what I'm saying? You know it's going to bring you back the biggest return, and you're wasting his years right now. Like if you're really going to do it, but then I say to myself, Ken, wait, you're talking about, and this was my problem when they did the tear down. I'm saying the first tear down like we're doing in one already. The issue that I had then was, wait, this is cool that the White Sox are getting these young players, right? But one thing the White Sox had done at that time, primarily under Kenny, but also under Rick Hahn, exactly.
Wow.
We detached the Rick Hahn from Kenny like they're not connected, right?
Oh,
like,
they're connected.
Yeah, exactly. But we detached him like.
By the way, that's his boss.
Yeah, just listen to Rick Hahn. If you haven't over the years listened to Rick Hahn at times, he doesn't sound like Kenny Williams to you. You are not paying attention to me, right? But this was the thing when they first traded Chris Sale, as I just held up his jersey. One of the biggest problems I had then was who selecting these players, because this front office does not do well selecting everyday players, right? So even then it was like, wait, hold on, how am I going to be for sure that these guys?
That's the next GM.
By the way, Juan Diego Montenegro. I'm going to be honest, man. I'm really pissed off. And again, this is to Kenneth's point. First of all, they got to rebuild the effing minor league system before they worry about this big league team. When Kenny Williams' teams when they were faltering and not making it with Ozzie as a manager, they were going for it every single year. His minor league teams did not resemble the shittiness that this minor league system resembles today. The destruction of what they've done in the minor league system, okay? And I've talked to a lot of people in other minor league systems that are like, people think the big league's in trouble. Their minor league system is like shot, okay? Chris Getz runs that minor league system. So this whole thing about like Chris Getz is a genius, I don't know who the hell they've been talking to. Why is he a genius? Other than he's a Caucasian man who communicates well. Why is he a genius?
Caucasian man that communicates well.
No, I'm keeping it 100% real. When you talk about guys that are geniuses, Kenny Williams has a ring. You have to give him the benefit of the doubt. He led a minor league director for many years. You're like, okay, like just like Ozzie Guillen, like, okay, this dude sounds crazy sometimes. He's at a World Series ring. Tony La Russa sounded old. He's at a. I'm sure if you talked to Phil Jackson today, you're like, this dude's off. He won 6 championships in 2 different teams. When you have won and you've had success, you have to give you the benefit of the doubt. What have Chris Getz and Rick Hahn done in order for everybody from Barstool Sports to Chuck to NBC to every single person in the media saying that these guys are geniuses? Why are they geniuses?
Well, Chris Getz hit that one. No, I'm serious. Chris Getz hit that one double in a White Sox uniform. And Rick Hahn,
Chris Getz does not make the big league team unless Ozzie Guillen says he's in the roster with Kenny because he was not a top prospect. He's not Gordon Beckham. So as a player, I don't get it when they say the word genius. And like these guys, it's not like Loonhow is building the White Sox front office or Theo Epstein. And you're like, okay, man, this guy did it in the Cubs. It's taking him some time. Pedro Grifol has more success in building minor league systems than the guys that are in the actual front office. How nutty is that for all the fun that he for Pedro? He's done it before. He did it in Seattle. So that's when the word genius starts going around. When you're looking at the core and you start thinking about, okay, if we rip it up, okay, can you rip it up and really bring the value in return and not be in the hole for 10 years like the Pirates were because you moved TA the wrong way, or the Marlins when they moved Miguel Cabrera for 5 players to Detroit, one who made the big leagues? Like, just because you trade players doesn't mean that the stuff's going to work. So if they're talking about retooling and redoing this, it's like, okay, do we need to trade the core, or do we just need to like maybe not sign anybody for a little bit and maybe not pay over the hill bullpen guys more money and kind of keep the core together and kind of like have them learn on the fly and maybe benching them like Grifol has been doing? They kind of wake up and maybe they're not going to be MVPs, but we kind of can get them like going like, dude, if Lyle Mouton, okay, would have played for this team, he would have been so rich. Okay, Daryl Boston, okay, Joe Borchard.
He went loud, Mouton.
The next
You're speaking facts. I mean, he physically,
he was literally Frank Thomas in the mirror. Okay, and he destroyed the minor leagues. But again, I'm really worried because I am not 100% of saying these guys are not great, meaning it's a health issue. But like, if you trade them away, are you really going to get the value that doesn't set you back 10 years? That's the gap. And here's the thing. I see them playing today. TA's back in the lineup. I don't care what anybody says. When Tim Anderson's in the lineup, this team gets better. They're not a World Series contending team, but the team does get a lot better. And you see them playing today, and you're like, man, if these guys go on a run and they get back to 500 and they get 1 or 2 pieces and they get the right person to lead them, this team at least is contending for a World Series. What I don't see them doing is trading a person like TA or Cease and competing in the next 5 years.
2 years. Yeah.
Yeah, like that's the scary part. Like I see them like, okay, they're not like which one is more like they're in the middle of an island, and which side is closer? It's like, do you trade TA and Cease and go full rebuild? Okay, I'm like, that looks like 10 years to get better again. Or do you keep those guys and say, hey, let's kind of make these guys learn on the fly and like whip them into shape? And who cares about how much they pay them? Be like, okay, they're going to be what they're going to be. And you don't pick up a couple options. You kind of like wear it out for like, you have Grifol for 3 years and kind of ride with it and see where you go and do this. Because the other problem was when we're talking about rebuild, we had Rick Renteria. When he got good, everybody panicked and pulled the exit on him after 160 COVID season, which I still think is a season that they should have gone for it. Okay. And then Tony comes in, has a great year. Then he has an 81. His heart's messed up. He can't do it, but he's fired. So that's a 2-year plan. Now we got Pedro in, and going into April, they want to destroy his team. So it's not like it's like 2 years into Pedro and you want to blow it up. It's like, do you really want to blow this up a month into Pedro?
4 weeks into Pedro.
I'm just saying though, like they were so positive in the press conference, and Rick Hahn looked like he had just seen. Rick Hahn's face looked like the first time he fought with his wife. He was so happy that he got his guy. He was smirking the whole time. You could tell that he was happy. So what happened to that like happiness with everybody with Pedro? He's still the same guy that he was. We're gonna kick your ass, and so like, do you really want to pull the plug 1 month in? I'm like, I don't think it's worth it, because I'm like, what happened if this guy, they pull the plug on him and he's like a Tony, but vice versa? His shitty year is going to come first, and then his good year comes later with guys a little bit more mature and Pedro kind of feeling more comfortable. Today, Pedro Grifol and Ozzie Guillen had a conversation, and I was very upset because I called Ozzie Guillen and he was talking to Pedro Grifol, and he said, I can't talk to you right now. I'm talking to Pedro. And I was like, dude, like, what the F? But everybody saw the picture. And I said, what did you tell him? And he said, I told him to be himself. Like I said, you're going to win or lose, do it yourself. And that's Ozzy sending an underlining message, okay, to him, because he knows who he's working with. If you're going to go down yourself. In 2004, Ozzy could have gone the route of, oh, Jose Valentin, I don't want to hurt his feelings. I don't want to hurt Carlos Lee's feelings. I don't want to hurt Sandy's feelings. These are guys that were his friends. And he was like, Valentin, you're not playing. Juan Uribe, you're my future shortstop. I don't care. Valentin won't be here next year. Carlos Lee. So, like, Grifol needs to start managing to think about, like, yo, these guys might not be here next year. I am. And he needs to make it a priority. Call guys out. Play the game that you want. If they tell you that not to hit Jake Berger third, but you want to hit Jake Berger third, tell the front office, tell Daniel, tell all the guys up there that are making the lineups and give them the finger and say, I'm making my own lineup. Because there's nobody in that front office, maybe Kenny, 50-50, that can make a better lineup than Pedro Grifol. So I'm like, hopefully he goes down with his, I'm being serious. If I'm paid, Pedro's money's guaranteed. And everyone in baseball is watching. So everybody wants him to be himself. If he's himself and he fights, he'll manage again, man. You can tell the guy's a great communicator, that he gets it. He's up there. There's things about him that I really like, but I'm like, I hope that he doesn't think that by me trying to save this team and being like a little stepdad for them and like loving them and caring for them, that I'm going to be here for the next 20 years, because he's not. Pedro, they don't care. If you don't produce, they will fire you. And that's what he needs to realize. And like the quicker he acts, I think the better off. So in my opinion, I think you keep the core. You keep everybody. You try to move Lance Lynn. You try to move Lucas Giolito. But you do not move the guys that are here for the long haul, meaning you don't move guys that are signed to good contracts or friendly deals. And unless, man, I don't know, I don't see a future for the White Sox without Tim Anderson.
That's a fact.
Well, because when are they going to sign a free agent? If you told me, okay, they're not going to get Tim Anderson's gone, but they're going to sign the next Trey Turner or the next free agent, I'm like, okay, you can live with that. But let's be real, man. They're not going to sign no big name. They're not. They never do. Jermaine Dye wasn't a big name. AJ Brzezinski wasn't a big name. They were good players, but they weren't like in the top list of like a big. If the last free agent signing that I think that blew everyone's mind was like Albert Bell in the top of their game when they brought Albert. That was a long time ago. I was a little kid. They're like, whoa, they're bringing out. They think Jim Thome was a big. I'm like, Jim Thome. Jim was like in the back end of his career, very good player, but it wasn't a top 10 player that they brought in as a free agent. So that's where I think, like, okay, you let Tim go. Okay, who do you bring for Tim? And I still think that Tim, even if he stops producing at the Tim Anderson level, he can be like an Ozzie Guillen in a very, very good team, a better version of Ozzie Guillen, because he can hit a lot more, obviously. But he can be a really good core player and not have to be the face of the team in 3 or 4 years, because you've built around him the right people.
OJ, you brought up something about Tim Anderson that stuck out to me. You said he would be a good fit on the Braves, and when I look at Tim Anderson, I see what to your point, Houston does that with Jeremy Pena. They'll bat him all over the place. A lot of different situations. You could do that with Tim Anderson when you have a lineup that can protect him and put him in different situations. Going forward, when you're building a new offensive regime, Tim Anderson could be a cog and a saving grace for that, because he could bat in different areas, because he could stir the drink and give you some momentum and take the pressure off. Like, look at what's happening in Detroit right now. Their offense is going to be terrible. Spencer Torkelson, Javier Baez, there's nobody to start the game off for those guys in Detroit. So they're hitting in very different situations than what our White Sox guys hitting 2, 3, 4 in the lineup, because Tim Anderson kicks it off.
I have a question, and Tony didn't do it, and I asked Ozzie Guillen this question, obviously, when we're talking about when he did the managerial, and he said, I hope that I don't have to be with that, because like Ozzie loves TA like at 6th spot. He loves him in that spot, but he's a great leadoff guy. And I've seen Andrew Benintendi hit like 3rd like 20 times already.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm like, why don't you just hit TA 3rd? I'm serious. I'm like, I'd rather see TA hitting 3rd than Robert.
All facts.
Well, that's what I mean, though. But they never put him there. So it's like when you're looking at like when they're experimenting, I'm like, they're not experimenting with TA. I don't know if TA just likes leading off. If he's like a Ricky Henderson.
OJ, look, Luis Arias is on my fantasy team, and he's been batting cleanup for.
That's what I'm saying, though. So like, if you're like, the White Sox need to find out who they are. So if they are going to be a quirky team, like when we saw Tampa, man, the reason that Tampa's so good, they know who they are. They know, like, they're swing and miss guys. Like, they know who they are. They're weird. They're quirky. They know they don't have big names. The White Sox need to know who they are and, like, really find their identity. And, like,
their IG models and TikTok stuff.
No, but I'm saying, like, when you're, like, they're worried about the clubhouse. Like, who's the leader? There's no leader in the clubhouse. Grifol is a clubhouse leader. You're in a clubhouse. You're a grown-ass man. It's who's the leader in the field. And when I look at the field, the guy, when he is playing well, this team does well, is Tim Anderson. When Tim sucks, this team looks like they're done. So, like, for me, when I'm looking at the game, I'm like, okay, when I see TA going well, I'm like, this team's going to be really good today. When I see TA struggling, and he's getting better at it. So when we're talking about building the core and what we're moving around, and again, TA's not the same player he was 2 years ago. He's not the same person he was 4 years ago. I think people have a misconception of, like, when people say his off the field problems, what are you talking about? Like, the guy is he off the field problems. Like, what? To me, that's like mind blowing. Off the field problems. Like, do you think that's
these the people that argue for a living on the internet?
No. That's not. He doesn't have. Dude, problems is having a drug problem and a gambling problem, and Tia got caught with 5 guns and like 25 pounds of cocaine. That's a problem. Like, Tia has never even been like. People are like, oh, Tia told Ozzy to shut the fuck up. He's a bad person. No, he's not. He was just reacting to it. Probably like Ozzy would have told TA shut the fuck up if he was on TV. It's just people don't get who he is. So I'm like, when people think like he's like he's a bad seed, like he's a player that's coming with all like a Milton Bradley, for example. They're like, oh man, he's really good, but there's some things off the field. So when people are like, that's the last thing you got to worry about TA. The only worry that I had about TA from a core standpoint, and I'm going to be very honest with you, I wanted to ship TA to the outfield at one point. I said, this dude's got to play left field.
Wow.
Center field. I wanted to. But
you
know what?
Part of the problem, KD.
No, but he earned it. Hey, he earned it. He earned it. He worked really hard and made himself a shortstop. And today, I'm going to be 100 with you because I know this for a fact. My cousin plays shortstop for the Braves. Ron Washington's there. And Ron Washington was like, I can make Tim Anderson a Gold Glover in their conversations because they always talk about, like, who could you work with? And when you look at Tim Anderson and his natural ability and how much has improved, like, he has that talent that he could be a Gold Glove elite. Like, I'm talking about, like, elite. So you're not going to go find that. You're not going to go and find – you're not going to draft the next Tim Anderson. That's going to be very hard to do. So that's when we're talking about the core. My concern is 2 people on both sides of the ball. And Dylan Cease. Because without those 2 guys today, May 2nd, 2023, I don't see the White Sox competing.
Wow.
I really don't. You can find another catcher. You can move Vaughn. You can put Colas at first. You can move them all around. I just don't see in the pipeline. I don't see a shortstop. Okay, I don't see another starting frontline starter in the pipeline. And people are gonna write me and say, "Oh, Montgomery," and it's like, really? I've never seen him play in the big leagues.
Right.
And he's not that
Jose
great.
Jose Rodriguez is a guy that you got to consider, but I'd probably
he's a third baseman. He's a third baseman, so he's got to play short.
No.
So now
Brian Ramos. You're thinking about Brian Ramos at third.
So who's Rodriguez?
Popeye.
Jose Rodriguez, Popeye. He's their shortstop. They're presumably going with, but I'd move him over second.
So you know what talent is in the minor leagues? Miguel Cabrera is talent. When they bring his butt up to the big leagues, Dontrell Willis is talent. Grady Sizemore is talent. If these dudes were that good, they'd be in the big leagues right now. They got Elvis Andrews in a wheelchair at second, and that's my boy. They got Lenin Sosa. They got Romy Gonzalez. If these guys were a spark of hope, okay, I'm gonna give you this much. Do you think if Andrew Vaughn was not as good as he is, he'd be in the White Sox big league roster?
No.
But he was that good that they said we could throw this guy in there. They just did it with Colas, and they saw, oh man, we might have been too early. So if any of those guys had promised that they were as good as Andrew Vaughn, they'd be in the big leagues. So when people are like, oh, so how far are they? I'm thinking like 5 years.
Damn.
They're a year.
How close are they? How close are they then?
Ramos and Rodriguez are a year away. And then
A year
Schultz,
away.
the starter pitcher, is
Okay.
2 years away.
A year away from doing what? Putting on the uniform and eating sunflower seeds? Or a year away from coming in the big leagues and producing? Because there's a difference to being in the big league.
Yeah.
There's guys that were playing, and then there's a guy sitting next to me, the interpreter, and we're talking the game.
And
There's
then
a
you got
big difference.
Colas.
So that's what I'm saying, though. So like that's my fear. You can have these guys in the big leagues, but that could also mean you're losing 100 games, and that you never get it to put it together. It's taking the Pittsburgh Pirates are on the 20th losing season. Okay, 20th losing season in a row. So if you make the wrong move right now, you can set this team back 10 years of another huge rebuild. Okay, if it wasn't for Tony's season and the COVID year, this team would be now on like 7 in a row of losing seasons. Let's keep it real. COVID baby season, 60 games. Tony comes in, finds a way to win 93 games, and they win 81. They were 500, not a winning season. So this year, right now, it's going to be a battle. So, like, when you think about moving guys, I would tread lightly, man. I think White Sox fans think it's bad right now. I'm like, oh, it can get really bad. The Cincinnati Reds were the big red machine at one point. Right now, they're looking like a little kid's toy machine. And they've been in that for like 10 years. So we need to be very careful if we want to have competitive baseball moving forward. And people are like, oh, get a new owner. Oh, really? Because it's that easy? A new owner is going to bring all his friends and everybody going to rebuild in 1 year? Oh, really? Because franchises work really well like that. It's not that easy.
They want that Michael Cohen ownership.
But it doesn't matter, though, because when Michael Cohen has a base, he had a foundation, he's just bringing extra pieces in. If you don't have anything, it's really hard to just build from scratch. This is not the NBA. You get signed 2 guys, and you're like, this is baseball, man. You need to have, like, in Anaheim, they got Ohtani and Trout, and they can win games. And they got 2 of the best players in baseball. So, like, they need to be able to set themselves up and say, we need to reorg and be able to find, because between the team going for the World Series and fans going for the World Series, they've completely destroyed their foundation. And without a foundation, you can't build towards the future. And White Sox fans have a big mistake, man. They think it's either World Series or nothing. The way for you to compete into the World Series is winning a division. And that's where the Sox need to go to. If you win the division 19 times in a row, I don't care if you have a World Series ring. That was still a fun 19 years. Go ask the Braves. No one in their fan base is complaining about all those years. Trust me, the White Sox fans are traded in 2 seconds. So they need to get to that, because it's really hard to compete, man. And by the way, they're competing right now because there's no realignment. It's only going to take MLB baseball to realize that they're losing money this way and going back to 2 divisions, National League and American League. And we're going to take the top 10 teams from there. Good luck the White Sox making the playoffs then.
Damn, hold on now.
I'm being serious. Kenneth can tell you, it used to be 2 divisions, bro.
Mm-hmm.
It used to be, teams were missing out on the playoffs with 96 wins.
You didn't get to sniff that pin.
You're in second place.
Out.
Bye-bye.
Not a chance.
What
before the wild card?
Yeah, the wild card now is like, this is fun now. You're like, oh,
right.
Like then you're like, oh, 97 wins. Oh, sorry, you're in second place.
Yep.
Yeah,
So
but Junior ultimately really, like, we can come up with a core between the 4 of us, but ultimately you still have Han here, which we might hear rumblings on the side with the GM, but we can't trust Han. We can't trust Han to do anything. Like
Jerry, I mean, I'm sorry for interrupting. Go ahead.
Yeah,
I don't see Jerry getting rid of his guy. I'm sorry.
We just saw him rebuilding.
I thought you paused for me. I apologize.
Yeah, we just saw Han do his rebuild, and he didn't retool at all during it to, wrap the players around his core they put together. And that is, what did he do after 2021 in that divisional round when he saw that there were holes there and we needed help around them? And that's not even mentioning. What was that?
Did he see the holes? That's the situation. My concern is this.
Yeah.
And you brought it up with Jerry. Is Jerry is Jerry and Kenny? Okay. My question is this, because Kenny just brought it up, that I put it back on Jerry. It doesn't matter if Rick Hahn didn't see the holes, but it's somebody telling him and saying, hey, there are holes in our roster. Like, the part when we're talking about accountability is like, okay, did we really not sign these guys, or did you go the cheap route? And why are you saving this money for? So that's what we're talking about. Like, when you're looking at like the gaps, it's like Rick Hahn's the GM. Kenny's there as like a lever to help him not fall and being like his sounding board. And then Jerry's supposed to be their sounding board of like not spending bad money. And I hope they're talking to their skipper, okay, because they used to talk to Ozzy, and that's why there's a lot of conflict, because Ozzy would be like, why are you bringing that guy? He's old. Or bring this guy. And that type of conversation, is that happening with the team now in the front office and what they're doing? That's the issue, because if maybe, Curtis, my worry is, did Rick think we had a problem? Because maybe I don't think he has, the way that this team is talking and being like, they said we're going to make moves. Like, man, I love Billy Hamilton, but Billy ain't a move.
Well, they did a good job bringing in Joe Kelly, right?
Joe Kelly?
Jake Diekman.
They blamed Joe Kelly. They blamed Joe Kelly on Tony, but the Diekman move, I still don't get it. Why did they make that Diekman move? I still don't know.
Because
Reese
McGuire off the roster, apparently.
Apparently our last guest thought that Diekman was good enough. By the way, I was right last week. Diekman was the first to get DFA'd, by the way. I won't take my victory lap. I'm just going to put it out there.
No, I'm just saying that, but you're not wrong. But like,
we're doing the right stuff.
But I'm saying that when you look at the move last year, when you're analyzing Rick as a whole, and you look at the move, you have to understand of like, why was that move made? Of like, why would you bring in a lefty reliever when you're not in the race? You're giving up something, and then it's a money situation. I don't get that move. Like the Elvis Andrus move, I get it. Mendick goes down. You need to find someone. He played well. You have to sign between Harrison and him, and you go for him. That's fine. Like, you missed on a guy. Again, like when you miss on guys like that on a move, like one or the other, like right now, they're like, you should have signed Vince Velasquez. I'm like, dude, Vince Velasquez didn't think he was going to be that good this year. Like, he's pitching.
Exactly.
Like, we can't take that risk. Like, Rodon, he's hurt. We're all right. Like, we all knew that he was going to get hurt eventually. So Rick was right of not extending him. So I think that in that situation, though, when you're looking at like the Diekman move, you're like, man, like I really want to ask him and say, why did you make it? Okay. Or why did you do the Joe Kelly move? Okay. Why did you do certain moves? So I think that that's the part where you're looking at it and saying, was it an organizational thing? Did they think they were going to
You're Chris Grifol.
Chris Grifol. I like that. Again, I'm going to be honest, man. I think that for this rebuild, I think that one of the concerns that they have to start worrying about now is fans in the stands. And I really think that if they do blow it up like 100%, I don't think fans are going to be okay with like that buy-in like they were last time, because the fans were bought in. They went in, they bought into it. Because I was surprised the first time they did that, they rebuild, because I was around Kenny Williams for 8 years, every single day. And Kenny hates rebuilds. That dude is miserable when he loses. He does not like losing. And the one thing that he did when Ozzie was a skipper was that every single year he did everything in his power to put a competing team on the field for him. Like, legitly. He lived and died that role. So, like, I know that him going, because Ozzie, by the way, White Sox fans would probably get mad at this. Ozzie wanted to rebuild like in 2007. He was like considering it. He wanted to do it in 2009. He was like, blow it up. Let's retool. And they were like, no, we can do it. So they love competing. So for them to be able to go out and say we're going to rebuild again, I don't think the White Sox fans are going to buy that.
No, they're not. They're not going. Well, hell no. It's going to be empty. It's what it's going to end
I
up
don't
being.
think it is. I think this time around, like from what we're seeing, and especially, I think if they get rid of Tim Anderson, like if they rebuild and get rid of TA and like go sign
I'm showing up with cargo shorts and tiki torches, baby.
No, I'm saying serious though. Like it's a money situation.
Well, guys, the fans already know. I mean, you look at the attendance today; it's almost empty. Like, no, decisions need to be made now. But
who would you guys pay to go watch for the White Sox?
Yohan Moncada.
No, I'm being serious.
Apparently, last Thursday, me and Jay were there for Dylan Cease, and that was about it. And then after we saw that situation, after we saw that situation unfold, me and Jay and Ray, we were sent 300 level. We went right back behind the section, sat on the couch, drank, and watched the draft.
No, but again,
that's how that went.
But that's how you have to consider that. Like when you look and you say, okay, Cease, he goes every 5 days. He's the guy that comes in and you watch. On the offensive side, the only guy that I see people going and buying a ticket for today, I'm talking about today.
It's TA.
It's Tim Anderson.
Yeah, it's TA.
Everybody might have their favorite player, but I'm talking about like fans from other cities that say, I talk baseball with everybody. The number one player that people know now that Abreu is gone, is Tim Anderson. Other people kind of name some. TA is the guy that everybody knows. So I think that when you're looking at that from a financial standpoint, they need to tread very, very lightly on when they move with TA.
Yeah.
White Sox Twitter don't matter, Vision. Remember that.
Well, White Sox Twitter, I saw them with the Clevenger thing that they put up every time he pitches now. It's like they go out.
We'll get to White Sox Twitter and tweets in a bit, but we have the rest of May to figure out what this team's going to do. But we just mentioned the draft, and we got one guy here with us. Why the people really want to listen to talk is about the Chicago Bears. And at pick number 9, the Chicago Bears did not trade down. They actually traded out one spot with the Eagles. Philly took Jalen Carter. Bears went back one pick, picked up a 4th rounder next year, and they drafted Darnell Wright, tackle out of Tennessee, with that pick. Kenneth, I'll let you take the rest, and we'll get to it with each pick. But tell us that breakdown of Wright at 9.
I don't know how many people caught the draft night in Chicago that we did over at NBC. Listen, I wanted Will Anderson at the beginning of this, before, when the Sox had the number, not the Sox, got me talking to White Sox, when the Bears had the number 1 pick, right? And we were going back and forth. We were debating about him and Jalen Carter. And my thoughts around Jalen Carter were, how often and how long do great defensive tackles last? Because it's kind of a rarity to have Aaron Donald, let's push him off of here. You know what I'm saying? But even guys like a Warren Sapp, you can say that Warren Sapp was only like Warren Sapp consecutively for maybe 5-6 years, and maybe he had a blip or two, like when he got to Oakland or something like that. So I wasn't big into Jalen Carter, but it seemed like when everybody thought the Bears would perhaps make a move with the Colts, that by picking 4th, that would be the player there. So I accepted that maybe they'd end up with Jalen Carter. This is before the car wreck stuff came out, and before he loafed on the pro day. All right. And the thing with Jalen Carter, and I'll say this, drafting Jalen Carter would have been like Madden, but it's real life. And Madden, I can control it in real life. He's out there rich and is doing Lord knows what the hell he's doing in his free time. Yep. And the league also told us, I mean, when Pete Carroll doesn't want you and you are that type of talent, and Pete Carroll will take a risk on anybody damn near. You saw the Lions didn't want him. When the league told us, and we all thought that the Eagles would be the best option for Jalen Carter. That's what everyone knew just from the organization and for the defensive players they already have in that room to kind of steer him right and keep him going on a pro level, because the Bears, we didn't feel like really had a mentor. Initially, I'll tell you this, I wanted the players to probably get a tackle, and I was going to settle for Paris Johnson. Paris Johnson was gone. I wanted the left tackle because I'm not sold on Braxton Jones. I'm not. Braxton Jones, I'll say this, when Ryan Poles says that everyone has to compete, that's not true when it comes to Braxton Jones. All right, Braxton Jones was allowed to fail and keep failing, and maybe it'll benefit them this year that he was allowed to go out there and keep failing, but you did not treat him the same as you treated Tevin Jenkins. All right. Darnell Wright, I think, was the best tackle, but I wanted the left tackle and not a right tackle. Darnell Wright was the second tackle that I wanted. And I don't even feel like talking about him moving right now. You got him in right. Not say that that's what we're going to do, but that's what some people have mentioned. You got him in right, leave him in right or whatever, because even down there in Tennessee, when he was playing left his junior year, he wasn't as good as he was at right. So the Darnell Wright pick, Chris, is a very good pick. You've solidified. You needed a tackle. This is why I didn't want Pete Skoronski. Do not tell me that, hey, this guy is this, but he can do that. Because when you tell me he can do that, you're going to be tempted to do that if he fails. And you already knew with his measurables. And we see that the Bears are big on measurables. That's all these players in this draft had RAS scores over 8. All right. Like, it's funny because if you look at the RAS scores of some of the undrafted free agents, they don't have high RAS scores. And to me, it's cool. It's not cool. I see that they have something that they're doing as far as looking for tall, lanky, big guys. I think you need players too. Sometimes you just got to let the tape tell you that this guy is a football player. You can't do all measurables. It's just anybody that knows sports knows if you go looking for the guy with just a whole team full of physical traits, you're going to miss the key players that know and have that instincts that can get you over the hump. But Darnell Wright was a very good pick at number 10. the Eagles knew that you weren't taking Jalen Carter, and they gave you a 4th-round pick next year as you were staring down the barrel of a gun. You got a 4th-rounder from next year, which in this year is technically a 5th-rounder since it's not next year. I like the right move. They solidified their offensive line. For right now, depending on what happens with Braxton Jones, and you're putting Cody Whitehair back at center. Cody can block at center, but we all know Cody has exchange problems at times at center. So we'll see. I don't trust Lucas
Patrick.
Thank you, Lucas. I was about to say Patterson. I don't trust Lucas Patrick. He played terrible at guard. So how could I? And this is a funny thing too. It's funny. Before last season, we were talking. This is when Josh Rock just joined us on Under Center, and I was like, you know what's funny? People keep talking about Lucas Patrick like he was a starter for Green Bay, and like you're bringing over him to be a starter. Who knows how well he's going to be over here getting starts compared to doing spot duty in Green Bay? And then I said to him, and people keep saying Cody Whitehair is going to be Cody Whitehair, and this may be the year where Father Time finally catches up with him. And both were true, unfortunately. I like Cody Whitehair, but depending on Lucas Patrick frightens me, to be honest. Hopefully he's better. But again, to get back to your initial question, Chris, the 1st-round pick, I think the Bears did a pretty good job with their 1st-round pick. I think Darnell Wright's going to be a really nice tackle. Again, I would have preferred a left tackle, but they believe in Braxton Jones more than I do.
Kenneth, I have a question for you because I was very impressed, and I think one of the issues that the White Sox have been that are currently in right now is the mistakes that the White Sox have made during the draft day. Alec Thomas not going with the person that you know, kind of trying to get smart. But I liked when when they asked him after the draft the next day, and people thought that he was going to talk about the kid's personal life, and he stayed away from that.
Mm-hmm.
The reason I didn't pick him was because in the combine he showed up overweight,
Yeah.
and in that one specific drill, he was like he quit.
Mm-hmm.
And then we went with the guy that might not be as talented right now, but we know he's not going to quit. I really love the thought process of that, like from a GM standpoint, that they went beyond just like this guy's a great player. And I think that the White Sox could have learned something from that. And I want to get your take on that. It's also something very like we saw that Pace is doing that's very different from other GMs, is that he's actually looking at the players that he's actually drafting, not just the tool set. Like he's actually going in there and figuring out, and they're going through this process of like, how can they handle things mentally? I think that's a huge win when you're building a something for the future.
Listen, I totally agree. Even further, and you can see Poe's scouting acumen from how he talks about, and I know we'll talk about like Dexter and Pickens, but how he breaks down, for instance, why. Because look, when I watch the tape on Dexter, I'm like, Lord, this kid's physical numbers are crazy, but he's not getting off the ball like I would think he gets off the ball.
Yeah, he's not firing off at the line.
He's not, because even accidentally, you just fire off. I mean, if you're 6'6" and you're running a 4.8, all right, with that much weight on you, dog, you are in the backfield. But forget height, you're in the backfield. All right, but when you hear Poles talk about, listen, I'm backing up and looking at how they're coaching him and what they were asking him to do, right? A deeper understanding than just somebody like me. I'm not as versed as Ryan Poles at scouting like that. That's an insult if I would act like I was a scout. You know what I'm saying? And people that are really doing that job or something like that. Yeah, I think it's very sound, and how it helps with the White Sox. I don't know, Ozzy. Like
do you think right now you said something that's very true? When he is talking about drafts, okay, you're like, man, this guy knows his stuff, and you don't put yourself in the same conversation as him. But when it comes to Rick Hahn, every single person, including myself, I'm like, oh, I can make a better pick than him. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I'm being serious because, like, just as a fan, you're like, for the first time in a long time in Chicago sports, the draft happened. I was like, man, that guy really knows. Like, he seems like he knows what he's doing. It was like kind of like a Theo, like the way when he's talking to you, and he might, again, they might not win anything, but the way that from a self-confidence standpoint, I'm like, man, this guy really knows what he's talking about. And I feel with other general managers, and especially right now with the Chicago White Sox, when he's talking, like when they're talking to me, I'm just like, lies. I know more than this guy. You're full of it. Like, like I'm literally going to guys on Twitter and being like, this guy probably make a better GM. I kept saying it, like Pedro Grifol is a better GM than the guy they have right now, and he's managing. Like I've said that comment, so it puts it into perspective of as a fan, when you really like someone and the franchise puts someone in charge that you believe in, that your whole demeanor changes of like, I'm pumped up about the Bears. Like I went there and I was like, I think we can win the division. Like we won 3 games last year, but it's because the confidence level that Poles hasn't said we're going to win, we're going to do this. It's just by the way that how he talks, and he's really earning that trust that the White Sox says that they were going to earn. But I don't think that right now that I don't think they're in that same page, and I really think it's because we think that he really has that credibility.
Oh, I think it's too because he has a clean page. You know what I'm saying? Like he hasn't messed up yet. You know, compared to we've seen when you look at Rick Hahn, there's been too many missteps for us to give him the benefit of the doubt. Like, and I'll say this, getting back to Ryan Poles. I'm at this point, I'm going to be critical of Ryan Poles until after next season and after next year's draft and the free agency, because then I have a lot more time to take in exactly what he's doing. Because right now, like this year kind of gave us a window into into the traits that these guys are going high razz. Because last year they didn't have enough picks for us to know, okay, what does he really like? Like, you know what I'm saying? Now we know, oh, you like guys with crazy measurables. Now we got to find out, like I was saying before, will that bite you in the butt? You look at a team like the Vikings, who is ironically like the Bears last year. They only had like 6 picks this year. They went with tape guys. Those guys had lower RAS scores or whatever, and they brought in Jordan Addison. I'm not saying that the Bears are going to fail from what they did, but now we're starting to learn what Ryan Poles likes. I'll say this too, to get a Rick Hahn. And I'm talking to you, I like it because you have a window inside that none of us had growing up or even still to this day. At times, I don't know if I should blame Rick Hahn because the purse strings aren't opened up sometimes. It gets to the point where, are we trying to go for it or are we not trying to go for it? Because if we're trying to go for it, I want you to blow the wad. You know what I'm saying? Like if you're in this window and you're talking about like, yo, this was the window's opening up and now people are saying it's shut. Well, one way to open it up is to spend some bread to cover up some of the stink here. So, like when you were saying this, Ozzy, as far as does Rick Hahn know where some of the holes are? And I think it could be a mix of no and also arrogance because you're like, hey, I assembled this. This is going the same way what I was saying about Braxton Jones. Ryan Poles, and that's one thing he says everyone was competing. Dude, you gave Braxton Jones a pass because you thought you found a gem. We'll see. We'll see if you found it. I'm not saying that Braxton Jones physically, and we also got to look at where he came from in Southern Utah. He didn't have a weight training nutrition like some of these big time programs in SEC and Big Ten have. So, okay, he has a year now in a professional team with professional trainers, professional coaches, professional nutrition. I like Braxton Jones' character. It's just I thought it was unfair how they treated some people, Platoon and Jenkins, but yeah, Braxton Jones, it was like, hey, you out there, learn, do your thing or whatever. I didn't find that fair, and it showed that you had a favorite because you drafted one guy and you didn't draft this other guy. But again, I like what Ryan Poles is doing so far. The Dexter, the Gervon Dexter question, and it's funny, I had in a mock draft, I had the Bears taking Terrell Smith and Gervon Dexter, so I hit on 2. But with Dexter, man, he better do something, you know what I'm saying? Because both of your tackles, your 3 techniques / nose tackle, however you said they're going to be hybrids, they didn't put up crazy numbers. Pickens played better at South Carolina than Gervon did at Florida. But I'll say this, man, they had a nice draft. Like you have one when you leave a draft, to be honest with you, if you leave a draft and there's one player that you kind of like, and you had like 10 selections, man, you had a draft. You know what I'm saying? Like they had, I have to say, we all knew they needed a cornerback. They brought in 2, but Stevenson looks like he's going to be starting outside of Jalen Johnson. And depending on what happened with Jalen Johnson's contract, he may be using someone that can step in one day. You look at the fact that you got your bookend tackle. You look at the fact that they went ahead and brought in, let me pull out my Tyler Scott out of Cincy. Dude, everyone and their mother knew they needed a receiver, right?
He the type to blow the doors off too.
Right,
right
now,
great value.
He doesn't have
right there.
He doesn't have.
Do you know more football than you do baseball? I think you do.
Yeah, I know more football than
No, I
baseball.
know Kenneth. I know you do. But I think Jay right here, Dragon Rider.
Don't worry about that. Don't worry about that.
I think
I'm
you're a
all
football
sports.
guy. I
All
think you're a football guy
deportes,
no, but I'm gonna be honest with you, like I Kenneth just said something about the window of when you're judging someone and why I'm giving Grifol the benefit of the doubt right now. He's a first-year manager. I don't care how big of a genius you are. When you're a first big league year manager, it's going to take you some time to pick up the, just pick up how the pace of the game and how it goes. I'm judging Ethan Katz that much harder now than I did 2 years ago because I'm like, you should have known better by now on this stuff. Just like Rick Hahn today, okay, I judge him a million times harder than I did in 2013. Mm-hmm. So when people are like, "Oh, you're being extra negative," it's like, no, we have proved since 2013. And when there's rumors out on Twitter that said, "Oh yeah, the Chris Sale trade was great, but the original trade that they had on the table was for Devers, Kopech, and Benintendi, but the Sox didn't pull the trigger fast enough," then you say, "Okay, is he that good as they say they are?" So I think Poles is like, we're getting to see the story of like Poles is in a position like when Rick was there. And he was building this thing, and now we're at the end of like with Rick, and it's like with Poles, no one can say anything because they have to wait and see what it all comes out
to.
OJ,
it's like when they say let the man cook, you can let the man cook, but he still is responsible for serving a dish. I feel like it's early in Poles' regime, like Kenny said, but at the same time, when you're going to hold somebody to the regard that you have,
also Kenneth, y'all. People don't call me Kenny in the streets. Yeah, please.
All right.
Ken or Kenneth, but because people, it's not y'all. It's people in the streets are gonna think that's the move, and that is not the move.
All right, my bad, Ken. Matter of fact,
it's not out of anger or anything. But yeah.
I was just gonna say, like, to OJ's point, like, it's been since 2013. There's some type of standard. I can fly off the handle when Rick Hahn has a misstep, where it's Ryan Poles to where he's still in his infancy.
And no one's called him a genius.
Yeah.
No one's called Poles a genius yet.
You know something that's interesting too, and it may not be right, but it's something that you just brought up because I didn't know about the Devers being involved. When Lord, he looked nice in the White Sox uniform. I knew. We all know he loved Benintendi, and actually he's pulling the Kenny move where I'm gonna get that guy sooner or later. It can be Junior Griff, 15 years past his prime. I'm gonna bring Roberto Alomar back 5 times. All right, yeah, Manny Ramirez, Carl Everett. We got to bring Carl Everett back too.
You know who did not make Carl Crawford? He wanted him so bad. I lost the bet because, by the way, this is Kenny's probably only hit on 50% of the old dudes he wanted to bring.
Okay.
Because he's always like guys that are like solidified and happen. But again, the Benintendi one, I think that when you become obsessed with a player, you're gonna get him sooner or later. Because you're obsessed with that.
So when you just said that, though, it made me think about something Ryan Poles said when he made the trade with Carolina. He talked about being too greedy. And sometimes I'm like, what do you mean being too greedy? But being too greedy to a certain extent, the way he was saying, it's like if all 3 of us was robbing a bank and one of us stopped sticking to the script and starts it's taking more money. And we said, we got 2 minutes, we got to get out. And then all of a sudden, Chris is like, nah, man, I'm going in the vault even deeper. And we're like, dude, we have to plan. It's timed out. We have to get out. And Poles sat there, got a number 1 receiver, because the crazy thing about this would have been this year too. We were going to put so much this wasn't a receiver draft, right? We were going to put so much stress on that receiver they drafted to be our number 1 receiver. Like it was going to be unfair. It was going to be like, man, you have to do this, Justin. And they went out and got a guy that can come in right away, just play with some haphazard quarterbacks, play with Cam with a bad arm, bad Cam. You know what I'm saying? Like, you got a guy that's put up 1,000 yards with Lord knows who under center, all right? And DJ Moore, right? And then you got a number 1 pick next year and a number 2 pick the year after that. And you still stayed in the top 10. So that's to the point of when you're saying with Rick Hahn not pulling the trigger and getting what you want right away, than dilly-dallying and waiting because you think you could perhaps get more, and then you end up with less instead of what you could have initially had.
They timed it perfectly.
Yeah,
they did.
And you know what? I'm sorry, Chris. Last part. You know how we know they timed it perfectly? Because nobody else traded up to get a quarterback. So when us Bears fans was dreaming our asses off, we're going to make 4 trades. Look, we're going to trade back to Houston. Then we're going to trade back to the Colts, right? Because everyone was like, yo, it's going to be a run on quarterbacks. It's going to be a run on man, Chris Ballard, the coach general manager who used to work for the Bears, sat his ass there at 4, all right? And got his quarterback. The Houston sat there and was like, dude, I don't care who falls to me. Right? Like we were sitting here like we control everything. The Sox there was only one team willing to really make a move when we come to find out, or maybe one team willing to get the number 1 player and give up what the Bears wanted to get the number 1 player. We were not as fortunate as what we thought we were. And a lot of teams didn't value these quarterbacks. Nobody cared about Will Levis. Will Levis was sitting in the back.
When I got Caleb Williams
He dropped.
microwave, I'm not gonna sell the farm for Will
right.
Levis.
Caleb, you're waiting for what? Dre, whatever his name in North Carolina, and Caleb Williams at USC.
Drake May.
Yeah, Drake May. That's all you wait. So it's like I'm coming back next year. These guys, I'm not thirsting for these guys like that. So again, I'll say this: being someone who is ignorant, not knowing, you know what I'm saying, total inner workings, he got the best deal probably that he can get because there was no movement. You know what I'm saying? Like it was what it was, and you brought in a stud receiver. You got a number 1, and you got a number 2. He did a hell of a job going out there and making that trade and just moving down to 9.
Bears win the division, pack it in. Vikings.
You're a homer. You're a homer.
I am a homer. For the Bears, you know what? I am. I have not been this positive. I think the Vikings are the worst team in NFL history, so I always have them losing. The Lions are the Lions. And Aaron Rodgers is no longer on the Packers, and I don't believe that they can do it. I don't think that the football gods are that horrible of football gods to bring a third amazing quarterback. The Packers hitting the third, but again,
Jordan Love is a light-skinned legend. You better be careful.
I'm just saying though. I'm hoping again. It's like Favre and then Aaron, and then I'm hoping that they get a bad one. I hope that there's a bad quarterback for them for a little bit, but I think that moving forward, and again, time does solve everything because today the reason that Rick Hahn has so much pressure on him is because finally he got everything he wanted. Okay, because the years before it was, it's Tony's fault. He didn't get the manager he wanted, so he can't, do his crazy stuff that he's doing. But in reality, now we're looking at it and say, okay, but no moves were made. And by the way, they did give him the money, but did he spend the money right? Did he try to get too kind of sneaky and smart and like, I'm gonna, and the part that's funny is like you make comments like Romy Gonzalez is the next Ben Zobrist, and then he's not Ben Zobrist. He's like Ben Zobrist, but Ben Zobrist was in 4th grade in middle school. Like he's not Ben Zobrist. Like Ben Zobrist maybe today, like old retired Ben Zobrist, but he's not Ben Zobrist.
I still think Ben Zobrist could hit 250 in this.
Probably, but I'm saying that he oversells. So I don't know like when he's coming off his genuine. And again, we can go back to press conference conversations. Press conference tell a lot about someone. And that this week's press conference with Jerry wasn't a press conference, but the talk that he had at the sports summit, they didn't give him any credit. Why? Because there's video. And if he was very candid about a lot of things that people took off the same way. Same thing when Rick Hahn's in front of the camera and he was talking. There's a lot of questions they asked him that he wasn't like very happy about. He was doing the shaking his head and he grabbed the water and he turned. When you've been around the media so much and you start analyzing that, you start seeing, people are getting frustrated, the questions that you're asking me. So like, I think Rick's in a really, really hard situation. Rick needs to think his gods or God that Kenny Williams is in a great place and will not fire him, because I thought that the move, my personal move, if I was Kenny in Kenny's shoes, I would have called Rick and said, hey man, it's like when you're going to go to the mob and you got to go do time. It's like somebody's got to bite the bullet. I still love you. You will get your money. We will bring you back on later on when nobody's paying attention as a consultant or something, but you're going to get fired. Like you're going to stand in front of this and you're going to take, you're going to take the beheading. And the fact that he hasn't done it yet, I would have fired him. I would have fired maybe the pitching coach, maybe the assistant general manager. I would have done something just because that's what you do to save face. The fact that he hasn't done it yet really tells me about the relationship, how close they really are. Because that would have been a move.
Before we get back to the White Sox, just want to wrap up this draft. And to be honest, Kenneth, as far as I see it, 9 and 10 there. I think Jalen Carter. He wound up in the best possible environment he could probably end up with, learning behind Fletcher Cox there and that defensive line in Philly. Great for him. That's where he needs to be. It's not going to be here in Chicago. But at the end of the day, the Bears got what I believe. I agree with you. I believe they got the best tackle in the draft, and that's where I was hoping they would go to begin with. Again, we had to see where the draft took us, and I'm happy that's where it ended in that first round. However, I personally enjoyed day 3 more so than I did in day 2, because like you said, I liked Scott, that wide receiver pick. That was a great value pick. Loved it. Terrell Smith, the cornerback that you just mentioned, another value pick later in and then you had Roshan Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
That guy is a man.
That was nice. That's going to be nice.
Behind Robinson, we saw what he did over there in Texas, but not only the play, but that's a true character too in your locker room. I didn't see many draft picks. We know all the talk, the talk, but like you get legitimate talk about his character, and that's what we need, in this locker room while we're building a culture. Or Flus with his philosophy. That's what I'm excited to see him being added to. Not only locker room, but even that running back, backfield that they got going. Losing Montgomery, I thought that was a character guy that he's gone, and hopefully this kid steps up into his shoes. And it always seems like we go from Forte to Montgomery. I don't know if it's going to be Rashawn next, but I'm excited to see what he can do in that backfield with the speed with Justin as quarterback. It's going to be exciting. But to go back to day 2, I just didn't understand the selection there. At that point, I was kind of hoping that they would trade up for Foskey off the edge.
Oh, yeah. Foskey was on my list.
He was there. He was there for so long.
He seemed like an Eberflus guy.
He
seemed like an Eberflus guy so much. Foskey was on the list. But you know what happened though? And I might say this. It's what happened when you trade for Chase Claypool. Don't forget, they had the first pick in the second round. Right? And you could
have both of them.
Remember, so the Packers, because Aaron Rodgers wanted a receiver, the Packers were in on Claypool, and the Steelers looked at it as far, and the Bears, of course, offered the pick that they got from Baltimore by trading Roquan Smith. But, of course, the Steelers know with the Bears sucking that your pick's going to be higher than the Baltimore's pick. I want your pick. And to bring in Chase Claypool, the Bears made that trade, and there goes the first pick in the second round, where even if the Bears either stood there and took an edge rusher, as you just said, or even still moved back a few slots so the Steelers could come up and get Joey Porter Jr. Or let me even say this. Since they brought in Tariq Stevenson, the Bears could have took Joey Porter Jr., who, if you talk about the type of stuff that Eberflus likes, length, kid almost 6'2". We know the bloodlines, you know what I'm saying, the type of quarterback he is. And again, I'm by no means am I dissing Ryan Poles for trading for Chase Claypool, because that was a clear sign that they were in on Justin then. We knew then it was like, okay, Justin's their guy because Justin's been hot. And now they're giving him something to work with. We all were down with the Chase Claypool trade. So I'm not saying, oh, you messed up. I'm just pointing out, as of right now, we were wrong. You know what I'm saying? Like, look, if Chase Claypool comes here, and it's very difficult as football to come in mid-season through, learn a playbook that the offense itself is learning. You know what I'm saying? Like, the offense is learning that they don't know Getsy's system like that. They're getting used to Getsy's system, and here you come, and now you have to come in and learn it also. So it's not that Chase Claypool may not play better this year, but if Chase Claypool was that guy, good chances they would have gotten more out of the trade than bringing in another receiver in DJ Moore. So it even kind of tells you how, like, yo, we got to cover our ass as far as that. But to your point, as far as getting the edge rusher, and this goes with Ryan Poles sticking to what he likes. Because I knew with the edge rushers that were left there in the third round, if you look at their measurables, they weren't Poles, Eberflus guys. And that's what it was like, oh, they're not drafting these guys. You know what I'm saying? Because you're talking about guys who can get off the ball, but they're 6'1". You know what I'm saying? So, like, a guy that I knew they wouldn't get, and that sometimes he may get beaten to run, even though his run efficiency is crazy at Georgia. Man, I love Nolan Smith. I know Nolan Smith is a dog, and I'm just not talking about a bulldog. I know he is a dog, right? Now, I didn't think you wanted to overslot him at 9. Look where he fell to 30. You know what I'm saying? So if you drafted him at 9, even though if you want somebody, go get him. We had Jim Nagy, the executive director of the Senior Bowl, joined us 2 weeks ago, and we were talking about Darnell Wright. And I asked him, I said, okay, a lot of people still talking about the Bears moving back, and Darnell Wright may be there, for instance, at 12, 13. What if they just move back and get him there? He said, don't be cute. And Ryan Poles wasn't cute. He went out and he moved back one slot and got his guy in Darnell Wright. You know what I'm saying? But when you're talking about, and it's funny, I love that you said day 3. Yeah. Day 3, Chris, if they didn't do what they did on day 3, I'd be lighting their ass up right now. All right. Like, I will be lighting that ass up so hot out of what the fuck are you doing? All right. But when you come back and knock the ball out the park day 3, it makes the scratching of Gervon Dexter. And if Gervon Dexter plays well, look, I'll say this with Dexter and Pickens. If one of them's a starter and another one's a rotational guy, they did damn well. You know what I'm saying? If both of them can start, it's crazy. That would be crazy. But also, sometime with the draft, we got to take a step back. They're not about to hit on all these guys. All right, like that's like they're not about. This is not Jim Finks and like the 83, 84, 85. You're not hitting on all of these guys for
like Kenneth. What, a team cannot hit on all their prospects?
I know, it's crazy.
Person that they have there, I guess.
Hey,
it's
stop playing, man.
Hey, he's being honest. Look at the White Sox. You guys think everybody's gonna hit? Kenneth is keeping it real. He's gonna say some of these guys that they drafted are gonna be bust, and then that's okay.
Right. It's you got to hit on more than you got to hit on more than you guys you miss on. No, but all of these guys aren't gonna be dudes. You know, like if Ryan Poles can do that, I'll never doubt him moving forward. Even when he's wrong, I'll be like, yo, in Poles, I trust. You know what I'm saying? Like if he can pull that off, where let's just say 80% of these dudes are here and are providing for this team, dude, he owns the city. He owns the city if he could pull off something. But what, like I said, it's not gonna happen. That's just how life goes.
But Kenneth, this was his very first off season officially. So, like you said earlier, we need to allow this season go on, because next season is going to be the biggest part of it. That's the second off season in full, and that's going to lead us to where we want it with our expectations as Bears fans, and that's where we're going to end up at. And I'm excited in the direction that he's taken us, not only in Eberflus and Poles, but also the new team president. I mean, all the three-head monster that they just created there, that's exciting. That's something we haven't seen in Chicago in a while as far as a front office goes. But Kenneth, let our fans know where they can find you as we wrap this up with you. Give us shout outs and where we can find you at.
You can always check me out on That Davis Show. That's my independent show. You can find me every Wednesday on NBC Sports at 5:30 p.m. with the Under Center podcast. So wherever you watch your Sox, Blackhawks, and your Bulls, you can find they rerun the hell out of it. So you can check that out there. Please subscribe to the Under Center podcast and That Davis Show. Follow me at That's Davis. Appreciate you, gentlemen. Everybody, I hope if you're out, you get home safe, and I look forward to talking to you guys down the road, man. And you guys be safe.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for stopping on, Kenneth.
All right, guys. Y'all have a good one.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kenneth. We appreciate having you. Take care, man. All right, everyone. That was Kenneth Davis of the Under Center podcast. Not only does he know Sox, but he knows a whole lot more also about the Bears.
The Bears.
Just happy to have him on. And now we can get going on wrapping the rest of the show up, because that was a lot of Bears talk. So, Justin, we got some mean-ass tweets coming our way now. Woo!
Oh, boy.
Bring it. All right, we're going to begin this rapid fire of tweets because there was a lot going on Twitter this week. We're going to begin off. First off, let's show the picture of Pedro and Ozzy. Might as well wrap this up real quick.
What the fuck were they talking about?
Junior, yeah, tell us a little bit of that advice, and then we'll just go on after this.
I hope he was saying, hanging on Rick. Hanging on Rick. I hope he was telling him that. I think that it's very unique because, number one, I think obviously they're both Latino. So I think that in Chicago, a lot of people, including White Sox fans themselves, they don't give credit, to people like Ozzy. I think like Ozzy is just someone that like pulled it out of a Wheaties box. The fact that he was a big league manager for the White Sox for that long. And I think that it's when you're a manager, not to say that it's as important as being the president of the United States, but it's a position that I think that only people that have gone through it understand what it really takes and the emotions that you go through as a person. I'm going to be honest, man. We were talking about it the other day when they lost the 10th game. My mom said, I really hope that his family and his wife are handling it because, they're new to Chicago. They're chanting, sell the team. They're probably in the stands like, what the fuck just happened? Like, and that's the part of the game that, you kind of know that you share that with them. And, everything's fun, but my mom knows what his wife's going through, wins and losses. And for Ozzy, he's the only person in that ballpark that has sat in that chair that Pedro has sat in, that has gone in a 7+ game losing streak, who's brought back a team from the dead. Okay. He's the only person that's done it. Not Rick, not Kenny, not Jerry. So when they talk, maybe if they're just talking about the weather, I think that when you have a manager in that sense, they probably are looking eye to eye and just be able. And I think Pedro's a real baseball guy that he gets that. And I think their conversations are, I don't think they ever talk like X's and O's. And if Pedro asked Ozzy for an advice or whatever, Ozzy would give it to him. But I really think that, they're just, Ozzy's probably like, if I was in Pedro's shoes, this is what I would like someone to probably come up to me and make sure that it's normal. And he knows what he's there. And if Ozzy can tell him and say, hey, you're managing like shit, I'm sure he would tell him. Because he used to do it to Tony very often. Obviously, he's been very vocal about that. But if he is managing well, he's doing things right, which sometimes players don't perform, then he is going to tell him that, because sometimes fans, believe it or not, managers do all the right moves and players don't execute. Or when you go something about the right way, which he just did with Luis Robert. Just because you bench Luis Robert doesn't mean that Luis Robert is going to become Mike Trout, but it doesn't mean that Pedro Grifol didn't do the right thing. So exactly. I think that just that conversation, and I think just the optics of it, of somebody like Ozzy coming out and lending a hand, and everybody, it's no secret that he was a number 2, in the conversations. I know Pedro knows that Ozzy was probably considered. God, the guy is walking through the halls of Chicago White Sox, and it's like the only pictures of the only winning season is all Ozzy. It's not like it's like a ghost. For him to be there and to have the support of Ozzy, just even if it's like, hey, what's up, how's it going? I think it's great for the optics of like what the fans are doing, because I think the fans are turning on him. I'm serious. Right there when they were in those 10 wins, I think that press conference world, people were getting really kind of annoyed and coming after Pedro. People were like, bring Ozzy back, fire Pedro with a 3-year deal. It's like, what are you guys talking about? Like, let the guy do his job. So I think the optics and it's just, lending support. And Ozzy knows, man. Ozzy knows that it's not that Pedro is, again, he's going to make decisions that affect the game, but that he is not the one that you have to blame for the situation that they're in.
Okay. OJ, we talked about Andrew Vaughn a little bit today. Gonzo got into a back and forth over whether he was a first-round bust. Gonzo, C-Sack on Twitter really got you hot and bothered. Can you take me through this thread for a second?
Yeah, so ultimately, when it comes down to it, is listen, I don't know how you can call him a bust when you brought him up and you're automatically playing him out of position. Like, this is our true shot at seeing what Vaughn truly is. And I know when I was in Chicago, me and Junior were talking in that office of his right there. And I mentioned to him, I'm like, hey, this kid, no one's talking about it. And like Baseball USA, they put a really poor report on him defensively. But I'm not sure if they're actually paying attention to this kid of like what he was doing in college. But he's fundamentally sound.
Yeah.
At first base. He's probably the best defensive first baseman I've seen fundamentally since, gosh, you got to go years. Like I put him at his age right now, he's better than what Pito was in 2012. And I'm talking about the fundamentals at the bag. Like I'm not, and that's just defensively, like when you go to his bat, well, I mean, granted, we all saw that he produced him last year, Pito, but it's going to take a little bit for me to even put him, offensively wise ahead of Pito because that's just not true. But defensively, he's sound, and I'm excited to see. Not only am I excited to see what he's going to do the rest of the season at first, but I think he's going to show a lot of people wrong, and because we have this perspective of him just because what we've seen from him out in the outfield. Which he was playing out of position to begin with.
That Twitter was an idiot. What's the word bust mean? If Andrew Vaughn's a bust, then just burn up this organization. And why are you even?
And with CSAC.
I'm just saying that why are you even a White Sox fan if you think that if you think Andrew Vaughn's a bust, you must be the most miserable human being watching the Chicago White Sox. And
Sounds like a White Sox fan.
I'm being serious. This is coming from someone that you guys know that I'm associated to the White Sox, but I'm not like you guys, like a diehard. Like, if this guy is literally forcing himself to watch this and you think that Andrew Vaughn's a bust, you have to reconsider your life, my friend. And this is why. Andrew Vaughn is a better first baseman defensively than Jose Abreu was at any point in his career. Okay? He's a natural first baseman. He's a kid that's been playing first base since he was probably in Little League. You look at him there, he doesn't make plays that look like hard plays. He makes them look easy because he's a natural. So he's a great first baseman there offensively. On the bat side, he's way too early for us to start saying if he's a bust or not. Why? When Jose Abreu came over to the United States to play with the Chicago White Sox, he was a grown-ass man, okay? He wasn't a rookie, okay, with minor league experience. He was a grown-ass man, okay? Mm-hmm. The White Sox didn't develop Abreu. Abreu came out walking and talking. So when everyone's thinking oh, we made Jose Abreu, no. Jose Abreu came as a grown-ass man. Think Ichiro, Puerto Rican version, Cuban version, Jose Abreu. So Andrew Vaughn, literally, out of all the White Sox prospects, he is the only one with no minor league experience. Okay? Literally, guy just got thrown into the fire. What was it called? The whatever C squad that they had in Schaumburg in the Boomers, where they had the people. That was his only minor league experience. He's been able to produce. Okay, he's been able to hang himself into the big leagues out of that group. He's the one that's shown the most potential. But I think that he is not a bust. Okay, Pantera destroyed minor league baseball, made it look like it was like Little League baseball for him. And he struggled in the big league. But why don't they like Andrew Vaughn? Because they like the swagger. Andrew Vaughn is boring. He hits home runs and looks at you like one eye's here, one eye's there. He's just an awkward, just a guy that likes hitting, and he's just there to play baseball. But I think that he's a real baseball player. I think that if the White Sox had more guys like Andrew Vaughn, there you go, I think that the team would be better off. But the team got sold. No, the team got sold on swagger. The team got sold on having 9 TAs. And we've seen that has not been the case, because when you get guys like Moncada, again, Andrew Vaughn has kept himself in the lineup. We've had issues with injuries. So I don't think that he's a bust. Again, I think when I look at a big league player, when you have a first rounder or a second rounder, you don't have to be a Hall of Famer. Okay? All you need to do is have a big league player that plays every single day for 140 plus games. And they have that in Andrew Vaughn. He's an everyday big league player.
Man, look, I think the White Sox have been chasing the Fernando Tatis when they needed a caliber.
They didn't know that they had Fernando Tatis in the minor leagues. Why do they keep talking about Tatis? The White Sox didn't even know that he was in their system. Okay? The White Sox fans didn't know that he was in the system. Tatis
No,
was
I'm just saying, not like Tatis type of success. I'm talking about like the swagger and the flair when they need a Cal Ripken, somebody
they should just sign Bad Bunny
every day.
Just sign Bad Bunny into a baseball big league deal. He'll have all the swagger in the world. Benito. I'm just saying, like, just looking from a baseball perspective, like, he is not, the word bust means that you are not making.
What's your favorite Bad Bunny song, OJ?
I think TT, the TT song. He wants to take the girls to VIP. He's got a lot of good songs. He's a little weird in his outfits, but he's got swag. But again, if people want swag, then go get a musician or somebody. I just think that
I don't know what Jason's watching at first base. If he doesn't think he's defensively
defense
sound.
is not good, though. His scouting grade of defense was trash.
Jason's friends with this guy.
Okay, well, I don't agree with that, and I went to scout school. Okay, so I don't think that his defense is trash.
Here, he's just going on a tangent now, OJ.
I'm overrated.
Right.
Again, so
we're gonna move on to the C's.
Who are we rating him against? But the word bust, you can say that Andrew Vaughn sucks and that you don't like him and he looks weird on camera, but the word bust is a little over the top.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what? We got something else because there's another terrorist on the internet. His name is the Chicago Italian Bull. Now let me tell you, Gonzo.
What is his name? The Italian Chicago. Oh, he's not one of those food people, right? Or is that a chicken in his hand?
I don't know. Like I have the man blocked on 6 accounts. I've never heard this guy day in my life.
This year, if you want to get on the nitty gritty, C's was only 2 elite months last year. Oh my God, he went after C's.
Yeah, he went after C's, man.
Does he know that C's finished second in the Cy Young?
Yeah, that's only, I guess, apparently on this post right
only
here. That's
2
only
months.
based on,
He was
only
only
2 months.
2 months.
He did that on 2 months. Which
just 2 months. He was a runner-up to the Cy Young in 2 months. These are the idiots that write Ozzie Guillen was a clown. He got lucky in 20.
Oh, hold up. We're getting to that. We're getting to that on the third.
I'm just saying, though, this guy's an idiot. Why are we even talking about him? He did this in 2 months. Did he just pitch every day?
Yeah, and he told me
I know
you have to be nitty gritty, and I told him, well, technically he was putting elite numbers up in 3 months, but not only was he putting up those numbers in those 3 months, but he was historic during that stretch where it was only him and Bob Gibson putting up those numbers. Like, if you're in that category, Bob Gibson, Hall of Famer, one of the best. He's in my top 5 rotation, Bob Gibson, but like, I don't know how you can even go off on C's. Like, I get it. He had 2 bad starts, and all of a sudden, people want to jump on the guy. Like, if you look at the numbers, he actually is having a better start than last year through the 6 games. He had 2 rough, starts in those 6, but you didn't start off the year last year like you did this year versus Houston Astros, going 6 innings on 86 pitches, no walks, 10 strikeouts. He didn't have that start a year ago. Nowhere near the efficiency he was a year ago. But yeah, I mean, we got a lot has to happen for Cease to go down that stretch again. But for one, he's gonna have this team's gonna have to back him up regardless. Because last year, I don't know how he was a runner-up Cy Young when he had one of the worst defensive fielding teams behind him. And then the offense couldn't even, and for situation baseball, they couldn't even score runs, get runs across the plate for situation hitting. It was just atrocious. I don't know how he managed to get through the end of the year with the numbers he put up because it was ridiculous.
Look at how disgusted Gonzo is talking about the White Sox in regard to Cease.
No, he doesn't.
That's how you feel, buddy.
So I want to say this. So Slav just wrote us and just shared Baseball Savant, the outs above average, one of the many defensive tools where Andrew Vaughn sits last. Okay, and this is where I go with defensive metrics. Defensive metrics had Mark Teahan at one point higher ranked than Adrian Beltre at third base. Okay, that's how much trash defensive metrics are, and you can manipulate them and put it there. So again, outs above average. That's fine. But I'm saying with my eye, I think that Andrew Vaughn is an above average first baseman. There's a lot worse guys out there playing first base. When it comes to Dylan Cease, He's going to need the team support for him to finish second in the Cy Young again. Okay, I think right now he's going through a rough patch. He had the sick game, but he's been able to battle through. Again, last year was a very special one, but do I think that he is still the ace of this team? Do I still think that he is up to winning 14-plus games and his ERA coming down? Absolutely. When you go on a stretch of 7-20, no one's going to pitch good. So I think that Cease is actually on an upside for the rest of the season. But if you think that Dylan Cease is garbage, you should just check your purpose in life and in baseball.
You make us sick to our fucking stomach, Italian Bowl, basically.
By the way, I don't even know you guys even get into that argument. Like, you did it all in 2 months. But again, Slav with this one, he is dead last in MLB because out above average. We will keep an eye on Andrew Vaughn's off defensive metrics, but I don't.
And how do nerds judge baseball players? Like, I'm just curious on how they understand the fundamentals to the game to score that. Like, it just mind boggles me on some of the metrics for this advanced metrics that we have. Like, I can get into it with advanced metrics. There's some things that don't make sense.
All these guys that think they know stats, we used to get the fielding Bible. They don't even know what that is before it was even made public. Before all this stuff was thing, and some of the stuff we would read. Ozzie Guillen, Joy Cora, myself, my brother, we sit in a family and we'd laugh at some of the shit that these people would put in there. Because you're like, are you guys really seriously judging defense this way? Defense is one of the hardest things to judge. Okay? And if you think that Andrew Vaughn sucks at first base, please send us a message. Okay, directly to the Blackout page, and you tell us, Mr. Genius, okay, upper deck expert, who should be playing first base. Literally, if it's not Andrew Vaughn, who should be playing first base? Because I'll put it this much. I know that you don't follow the Houston Astros, but right now Jose Abreu is sucking big time. And they're calling for him to get traded for the Cuban they used to have before. Jose Abreu, they want Julie back. Jose Abreu's punching home plate, okay? Go Google him. He was punching home plate last week because he's struggling. So stop watching the White Sox. Turn on the Houston game. Look up how Jose's doing. Cintron, the hitting coach, said, I believe in him. He's always had a crappy April, which he has. But who should be playing first base then? Who should be playing first base? Do you think Jose Abreu would have fixed this 7-20?
Yeah.
Do we think that he would have?
He's also in a dome going through this cold stretch.
He didn't win anything the years before. Again, great player, build him a statue, retire his number, blah, 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 all this stuff. Move on. Andrew Vaughn is not as crappy as everybody says he is, even though I said he was not going to hit 30 home runs this year. He is still an above average player, and time will tell us who he is. But if you have a better option for someone playing first base, please let us know. Because if he is in the White Sox front office, we will have a debate for you.
Yep, and that leads us to our last tweet, Justin.
We
saved the best for last.
Oh, fuck.
Junior, this is your man, Vinny Parisi, writing an
article. I think that the South Side shutdown is probably the most confused outlet out there, okay? This is after one of the writers basically called Ozzie a clown, who I didn't even know who he was. Who writes for the Southside Showdown. Basically, they write two types of article, one for the left, one for the right. Basically, meaning on any given topic, they give you two sides so they're not wrong on either side. They go after Clevenger. They love Clevenger. Now they want Ozzie to be the manager. Okay, we have receipts in a folder called Ozzie's Receipts, where Ozzie keeps all of the people's pictures and tweets and articles and whatnot. We go back and we laugh at it. You know, he enjoys a cocktail, and we obviously laugh at when people are wrong. And we have pictures of White Sox Twitter fans, you know, with the finger, whoever wants Ozzie as the manager, all that stuff. The Score came after him. Barstool Sports said, hey, we want to have Ozzie on. I said, go call Grifol. Like, we read, and I consume way too much information, and everything gets related to Ozzie, and he reads it, and we enjoy it. The fact that now you want Ozzie to be the manager, okay, yes, he is clickbait Vinny. The fact that you want Ozzie as the manager right now, I'm going to be honest with you, I judge your acumen of baseball. Because if you said that Pedro Grifol was the right manager, okay, from the start in the press conference, and in less than a month, you're pulling back and you're saying Ozzie would have been the guy, that means you didn't know shit about baseball from the beginning and when we started this. Okay? And I'm going to give you guys a tidbit, which I have not talked about. When we were on our way, okay, when Ozzie got the phone call from Rick Hahn and he was on speaker, we were leaving Bernardi, and Rick Hahn called Ozzie like 6 hours later. Then we already knew who the manager was. And he did you're special for blah, 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 blah. And Ozzie, of course, he was upset. He wanted to be the manager. Of course he was. Who doesn't want to be the manager of the team that you love? And we were driving. And like 35 minutes in, I said, you know what? I don't know if they didn't make the right. I don't know if they made the wrong move or they made the right move, but I'll tell you why they made this move. I said, in my opinion, if I was them, I would not want you to be the manager if we were in the middle of a rebuild, because you would be a liability, because you would tell the fans and the media the truth about the team every single day, regardless of how bad the team was. And I said, if the White Sox start off really, really bad, and in
That's
June,
a really good point.
I said in June, they're not in the middle of the pennant race, they will blow this team up, and Pedro Grifol is the best manager that you can have for a rebuild. Why? He communicates well. He's great on fundamentals, but that's not Ozzie Guillen. He's never managed a rebuild. He's going to be way too boisterous. So maybe that's what they have in mind. Maybe they don't think their team is as good as they say they are, and they're planning for the future. So if I'm making that assessment, and this guy not only gave me life, and he is the guy who basically, in my opinion, is the greatest manager in White Sox history, and he's like, you know what? I think they have a point. And then you move on and you're like, that's a good baseball move if that's where they want to go. You have somebody writing an article saying now Ozzie should have been the manager. Shut the F up. He should not be the manager. Why? Because Ozzie would be out there. And then when Ozzie would go out there and call out one of the players, that same media group would write an article on how Ozzie's so hard and so tough. And Ozzie they need to create a safe space for players because Ozzie's being too hard. Everyone wants guys like AJ Brzezinski and Ozzie Guillen until those guys get the job. And then those guys start talking the truth. And then everybody thinks that those guys are too hard or too crazy. Dude, go Google Ozzie and what the front office was talking about Ozzie and what the media was talking about Ozzie. They loved him. They loved his style. And then after 2008, when they weren't winning anymore, then they all turned on him and his style was shit. That's what happens in baseball. So to go out there and not give Pedro Grifol the respect that he deserves, okay, after the fact that you guys were circle jerking him, okay, everyone was in the press conference. This is the greatest manager of all time. He was talking about verticals and X's, and you wrote 7,000 articles on how this was the greatest hire of all time. Now you're going to turn on the guy? That's BS. I don't buy into that, and I call out the BS when I see it, and that's why I shared the tweet, because I was like, this is a bunch of crap, and it's clickbait because you did not want Ozzie to be the manager. So now why are you coming out of the woodworks and saying, oh, we think that he should be the manager? Live and die with your opinion, okay? Live and die with your opinion, and that's going to be one more respect. If you say that 2 years from now, and they're dead last, and this organization went to shit, and you say that, man, because I say it. I told Gonzo here. Gonzo's like, what's one take that you would take back that you were completely wrong on? I was like, I think that I wanted Rick Renteria fired way too early now. Looking back, I'm like, man, maybe Ricky wasn't that bad. Maybe we didn't give him a chance that he deserved. And I go back and said, maybe I was wrong because I didn't think it was the wrong move then. But looking back now and saying, damn, I don't think that was the right move. Making that assessment a month into the season is not cool unless you were on an Ozzie boat from the beginning and you were saying Ozzie was the right guy for this team. Everybody said, oh, no, Pedro's going to come here with the Kansas City Magic and he's going to make them contenders right away because he's been in pennant races before. Really? He was a team translator and bullpen catcher. He's never been a coach. Like, he's a great baseball guy, but he's never been in the middle of a pennant race. This is new to him. But everyone wanted to sell their story. But now they want to ask, oh, was Pedro the right guy? Well, you guys said he was. So let's ride Pedro out. He's got a 3-year deal. Let him develop and see who he is. I am not jumping on the fire Pedro Grifol, okay, 1 month into the season. And that's why I claim the month of May, Pedro month. Because I would love to see Pedro Grifol go on a great run and bring this team back. So then all those people that wrote that article that bring Ozzie back look like idiots. Because it's not Pedro's call that wow, he was a horrible manager. Missing the shortstop, missing the third baseman, missing southpaw. He's missing everybody. Like his team's not very good. So considering, and then today they said, "Oh yeah, Pedro, you're gonna get help. You got Billy Hamilton.
You got Alex Colomé.
You got you're like, and Pedro. Like, so I understand the game, and trust me, I go to bed sometimes, man, and I'm like, man, we dodged that bullet because I know that I would be a very miserable human being. Because if you're in the middle of a fight, and they basically send this guy to go fight a war and give him water pistols. So he's just grinding it out with his guy. He did. Like, oh yeah, we're gonna go out there and you get like when you look at other rosters and what other teams are doing and like what you're competing with and what you decision, you're like, you always want them to give the person that you're rooting for the best chance. And looking at what they're giving him is like, man, like they're making moves, but are they the right moves? He's not in a situation that he can succeed a lot. So I'm not rooting against Pedro. Like, I hope that he does a good job because Pedro wasn't given the San Diego Padres and said, go get him, Pedro. And then Pedro's going to fail with a great team. It's like, is this team this great? Okay. Is this team win 90 games? That's where I'm at. So I thought that article was BS and that's why I wanted to share it.
Yeah. A lot of BS. A lot of BS.
Clickbait though. It works. It works. I clicked it.
Did you see the question that I put underneath your dad gonna be on the Foul Territory TV tomorrow?
What did he call Alex Thomas?
Yes.
It's a good question. He'll probably say something around Spider-Man, but he did used to call him a little shit.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. And this is the part of the show that we are going over the upcoming week in Southside Daily. This is Southside Daily. We got 2 more games Wednesday, Thursday versus the Twins. Tomorrow's matchup, Dylan Cease versus Varlin. I know Junior's looking at the betting for tomorrow. We'll knock the betting out right away here. With Dylan Cease, I'm feeling good about this, Junior. What's it looking like right now?
I think that Cease should get the victory, and that should be the first White Sox victory.
Yeah. Yeah, you know what? And then the next game on Thursday is Gio versus Lopez. So I'm feeling like this is gonna be that first series, like you said. They're gonna win. They're gonna win it, and they might sweep. And that is kind of shocking for me to say because tonight was a big game. You dropped that game, and I'm not saying they're gonna sweep. They're gonna win a game at all. In fact, you stole that first game, and you got our boy Dylan Cease on the mound. You can very likely win 2. Toughest games that third game with Gio and Lopez, and with how Gio's been pitching lately, he's been doing good, and he's gonna have to have his best performance versus their guy in Lopez. So, but I think they can squeak one versus Lopez, and then they're on the road Friday through Sunday. It's going to be Lance Lynn versus Hunter Green. Saturday, it's going to be Clevenger versus Ludolo, who's the lefty rookie. That kid is something special, the lefty, Ludolo. But then game 3 on Sunday on the road is going to be Kopech versus Weaver. Guys, what do you guys feel like on that road trip in Cincinnati?
Well, if you look at what Cincinnati's doing, they're starting off fresh. They're getting contributions from guys like Spencer Steer. Jonathan India has been carrying the team. So we're gonna play a series against a lot of youth. So I think it'll be a great opportunity for us to get back to the fundamentals. Let's just go back to playing clean baseball. We're in a series with Minnesota right now to where we're gonna have to slug a little bit. Let's just be honest here. Even a day to like tomorrow with Dylan Cease is going, you still got to be able to hit the ball out of the ballpark. So it's an interesting thing when you're playing 2 contrasting teams. You got to prepare for the home run one week. Next week, you want to get back to the ground rules. So I just want to see, like, this is a flexible and not a flexible, but you got to see Pedro's willing to be flexible when managing against these two different teams.
Yeah. And I feel like they're going to take 2 of 3 in Cincinnati. And then on Monday's game, also on the road, is the opening series versus the Royals. And that matchup, Junior, is going to be Dylan Cease versus old veteran and Zach Greinke. So at the end of the day here, Cease got 2 starts. I can see him going at least 2 and 3, Minnesota 2 and 3 on the road, and then winning that first game of the series versus Kansas City. What's your thoughts, Junior?
I think 14 and 23. I think they can definitely go 5 and 2 on the road. 5 and 2 because they're facing a really 2 teams that I don't think that they're at the caliber that the White Sox are in. You got TA coming back already. Going to have a couple games under his belt. I think a lot of bad things have happened to Pedro Grifol. I don't see Pedro dropping his first head-to-head versus his old Kansas City Royals team. So I got them at 5 and 22. That would put them at a 14 and 23 record for after this week. But I think Cease gets him back on track. I think he'd be a great pick for Pick the Click, because obviously I think those 2 games are winnable for him, and he gets himself back on track with those 2 wins, which again, start of the week and end the week. But again, this is that gut check part, man. Because right now they're not only playing for the record, but they're playing to keep that team together. So if those guys are really close as they say they are, you're basically playing for a lot of those guys to stay in that Sox uniform. Because if you go in and you have a horrible series against the Reds, and then you go in and get spanked by the Kansas City in Game 1, again, you go back to what the horrendous stuff that they were facing in last week. They finally won 2 games in a row. They're now looking to win a series. So it's a week where they need to build up on that and not regress.
Yeah. No, I agree with you, Jay.
Yeah, I was gonna say we're in a division to where we don't have to play 800 baseball to get back into the race. Everything is a little bit tightly packed in the American League Central. So, like I said, if I'm Pedro Grifol, I'm trying to figure out ways to get these guys back to playing at least consistent baseball. That is the only way we're gonna survive. Like, me and King Mac, we joke about it all the time. Frank Menechino wasn't the problem. That he was bringing a sustainable formula to the table just so we can consistently score runs as often as possible in as many different ways as possible. So we can, like Cincinnati, it doesn't have to be the 2-run double or anything. Maybe it's the productive RBI ground out with a guy on third with less than 1 out, like we seen. Even TA couldn't get it done today in extras, but there's still a lot of baseball left to work on it. And maybe it starts with handling 2 out of 3 in Cincinnati.
Guys, this could be the first time they win not only back-to-back games, this could be the first, at this point of the season, they win back-to-back series at this point coming up here. That kind of gets me excited if things go as I feel like they will. Jay, guess what we got to do now, man? It's that time of the show. Picks to click. Let's go.
Oh, my God.
All right. This is Pick to Click. Justin hasn't won at all yet, and Slav wins this week.
Baby Pedro.
Yeah, whatever. I'm gonna start picking Red Sox players. How about that?
You lose her twice again too. Actually, you guys are above 500. You guys are above 500.
And Slav wins with this pick of Andrew Vaughn, who went 7 for 21 since we last aired. And he had 3 runs, 2 home runs, 4 ribbies. Slav wins it. And with Slav's pick to click for this week, he's going with the guy off the DL, and that is Tim Anderson. He is picking TA and that's who he's rolling with, who went 0 for 4 today. So hopefully, hopefully he turns it around. Slav is tied with me with 2 wins to lead us at the moment. It's 2-2, 1 for Junior and 0 for Justin. The order after Slav is going to be me, Junior, and then you, Justin, because yes, Burger actually had better stats than Vaughn, but I gave it to Vaughn for the walk-off.
Got it.
So obviously Kopech did better than Cease, so that's how it follows you or after me. So yeah, go Slav, me, Junior, and then Justin. Slav went TA. I'm going to go with Dylan Cease with the 2 starts this week. And then you're up, Junior.
Wow. So we can't pick Andrew Vaughn because he obviously won it.
Yep.
We went TA, we went Cease. Man, who am I going to go with? You know what? I haven't picked them the whole year. I think I'm going to go with Burger. I'm going to go with the Burger. The Burger-nator.
I like it.
Oh, dad power. I think I'm going to go Gavin Sheets.
Billy Hamilton's available.
I'm picking Gavin Sheets. I'm picking Larry's son. Give me about 2 home runs this week.
And chat, this is the picks for this week. It's going to go Slav, TA. I'm picking Dylan Cease with the 2 starts this week versus he's got, tomorrow he goes with Minnesota. Then he's got the second start versus Kansas City in that first game of the series. And then Junior is going with Burger. And then Jay is rolling with Gavin Sheets, who's going to get his fair share of reps in right field. Gentlemen, how are we feeling with any concluding thoughts? I know, Junior, we didn't get to ask you about Colas, but was that the right decision in sending him down?
I don't see why not. I don't see why not. You're not saving him. He's not playing well. I think that I wish that would have been him and Pantera to send a message, but I know what they mean. But he's gonna find himself again. Bailey's is not easy, man. Bailey's is not easy, but now they got to make sure when they bring him up that it's for hopefully for the last time they send him down, and then he's really working on something down there. So, but it was the right move. Again, they needed to shake something up. They were on a 10-game losing streak. He's probably the guy with most options, so why not him?
Yep. And there were, in case anyone didn't realize, that there were 11 roster moves made today, and we're seeing some familiar faces with Colin May coming back. So this is not it, guys. You have Liam Hendricks and Garrett Crochet coming back momentarily within the month of May, likely. So another 2 moves to be made in that roster. So things are looking up here. They just won back-to-back games. Junior's dad's losing articles of clothing at the moment, and we'll see if that continues tomorrow.
Two articles?
Yep, 2 articles. We'll see if that continues tomorrow. And we had on Kenneth Davis from the Under Center podcast. And
we talked a lot of Bears tonight, too.
We talked too much Bears tonight, but for all the good reasons. We talked more Bears and Sox with how that draft went. But if you missed it, we talked about Cease and the sale controversy to begin the show. And from there, we went on through the rest with Grifol's decisions from the past week. Again, we talked draft. We gave you the upcoming preview of the week, and we made our picks. Gentlemen, that's going to be a wrap for tonight. Everyone, thank you for tuning in to the Blackout Show, and brought to you by Gonzo, Justin Lee, and my partner on my side, Ozzie Guillen Jr., always giving us the best knowledge around for this game of baseball. Thank you for tuning in to the Blackout Show.